أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Amen. The program for this afternoon is on marital disharmony, causes and solution. The lecturer to deal with that is Dr. Said Oluretimi Timehin, and is going to be represented by missionary Abbas Afatai Edun, sorry. So, but before, I want to highlight the way the program is to look like. Number one is that we have a moderator by Dr. Sani Adedare Tafik, and those who are going to be discussant of the program are the Regional Secretary, Dr. Bashiruddin Oyetunji Sahib, and they are jointly supported by Alhaji Muhammad Murtala Shitu, that's Tarbiyah Secretary. And coincidentally, all those mentioned are members of Rich Tanata. There are a lot of wealth of information and a lot of crises that are faced here in and here out. So I believe the team is well packaged. Even the moderator who has just joined as the Assistant National Rich Tanata is also pulling weight. But before then, let me quickly intimate you what is actually happening. For the past 1 year now, the rate at which divorce in the Jamaat is very, very alarming and very high. And what we observe is that the number of Ansarullah that are divorcing their wife are so high, probably because of economy, I don't know, or probably because they don't want to engage in marital issue again, or they have been enduring in silence for some time before they just conclude that they don't interested in having marriage again. And we look at the situation. If you are given to birth of 4 or 5 children and they are all in a higher position, and you now conclude that you are no longer marrying your wife, you have used him, you have finished the whole psychedelic in her. I don't know who you want such person to marry that kind of abandoned wife. So I don't know who is going to marry her after exhausting all the goodness in her. I don't know. Yes. Will the children also be happy where they being separated? You know, some men are so tactical, they will not pronounce their voice, but tactically they will just abandon the wife. And the most unfortunate thing is that they will go outside and bring the second wife, or even the third wife. Will you call that Islam Ahmadiyya? I know definitely it's not going to be so. Rather, to multiply the cost of the Jamaat, we are even creating more problems. Because somebody you bring in who has not trained along that direction now come to the Jamaat. If the problem is about 10 before, you have added 1 to be 11. So in order to solve such problem, and that is why we are having an erudite person to discuss it, and as well as interactive session, we will be hearing a lot of information, pathetic ones. And for us to stop it, even the way we conduct the marriage these days is also not on. Family marriage, you won't call the Jamaat. And when it becomes of the rank, then you now calling Rich Jonathan, you'll be calling Amir, you'll be calling Sandra, you'll be calling various kind of people. So to help that, I think we need to agree. Here is for solution. Today is not a theory issue, today is practical issue. So you should examine ourselves individually, how we are going to solve the problem. And the solution lies between all of us here, as father, as brothers, and whatever we call ourselves, leaders, fine, it's okay. With that, I will call Dr. Said Simei representative, that is Missionary Edu, to come and deliver his lecture. Don't forget, it's supposed to be 1 hour, but I will request that you don't spend 1 hour, you spend 45 minutes. Yes. We'll need to paraphrase it. So it's a lecturer himself, you know how to do that. Bismillah. Okay. No problem. Okay, sir.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وعوناك يا معين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين حبيبنا مولانا محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحابته ومن سلك مسلكه إلى يوم القيامة أما بعد. We give glory to Almighty Allah, the Lord of all the universe, who has given us yet another opportunity to be gathered here this evening for this talk. Very important one that has to do with how peace can be maintained in our homes and crises be resolved amicably without more issues being brought up. Respected Naib Amir, he has seated, the acting missionary in charge, to all the listeners. This topic is originally supposed to be handled or treated by Dr. Said Simei Oluotibi, who called me a few hours ago that I should be here to give the talk on his behalf. The paper have been written and sent to the Majlis Ansarullah before now. The introduction. Let me begin with a confession. I was informed about this lecture about 10 days ago. 10 days before the deadline for submission of presentations. This, unfortunately, was the time we were preparing for the Nigeria University Commission's accreditation visit. I naturally did not open the message to know what the topic was until after the accreditation exercise, which incidentally ended exactly on the day I was informed that my paper was the only one delaying the publication of the workshop magazine. It was, however, surprising to observe that the topic assigned to me was the same topic I was given during the 41st Ishtima of the Majlis Ansarullah in Ikere Ekiti. Why on earth do we have to revisit the topic, one may ask? The answer is simple. What necessitated the choice of the topic almost 7 years ago is still very much present in our midst. For our leaders to have chosen the topic without any amendment shows that nothing has changed in the way we do our things. We have continued to pray for positive changes, but there has been no significant positive tilt in our attitude and behavior. May we not come under Einstein's verdict of insanity, which he defines as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. For the purpose of this lecture, I will change this harmony in the topic to conflict, though they are basically synonymous. Conflict is more generic than disharmony. Why marital conflicts? In human relationships, conflicts are inevitable. In matrimony, the more intimate the marriage relationship is, the more likely it is to experience conflicts of interest and desires. No two normal intelligent persons want the same things all the time or see issues in exactly the same way. Our individuality is in fact the strongest proof of our diversity. In marital issues, we have to be extremely realistic, and we must recognize the fact that disagreements are inextricably a part of marriage. Two strong independent personalities cannot ride together in a boat without some kind of turbulence, and this is true for both Muslim ranging to personal characteristics and behaviors, lack of respect, particularly from the wife, misunderstanding in the of their duties and responsibilities, and other related issues are generally more readily associated with marital conflicts. Marital dissatisfaction is nurtured easily when there are conflicts over power and authority. Mutual spousal complaints of shirking responsibility, physical abuses, extramarital relationships, jealousy, and over-possessiveness, though serious, are very often manageable when ego-related matters are taken care of. A woman who has mastered the art of ego massage and showers a man with loving encomiums and care will more likely get away with most misconduct than the one who does not honor her man in speech and deeds. This is because the desire to be loved and respected is one of the most basic instincts in men. About a decade ago, I visited an old couple. Prior to my visit, I had been told by people that the old gentleman had spoiled his wife to such an extent that he has become her slave. Though I didn't believe it, I made room in my heart for their suspicion. I therefore decided to observe the couple closely. The 3 hours which I spent with those two old lovers were eye-opening for me. I saw the way the woman doted over her husband, responding to him with love and honor, and despite their age, praising him and expressing her gratitude over every little thing he did. When the old gentleman went to the toilet, I quickly asked the woman why both of them were behaving like kids in a new relationship. She laughed heartily and said, "Timei, you are not serious. We have been together for more than 50 years, and our understanding of each other has grown over the years. I have discovered that he treated me well anytime he was feeling good and fulfilled, and since I wanted to be treated well at all times, I decided to find out what gives him a sense of fulfillment, and I discovered that he hates being disrespected. Since I already respected him, I told myself that I would not respect anyone above my husband, and I would always show him that I respect him. I started doing it, and it paid off for me. I know people say that I have charmed him or enhanced him in some unorthodox way, but this does not move me in any way. As we grew up, my respect for him also grew up, and his devotion to me and determination to please me also grew with it. This does not mean that we didn't have conflicts, though. It's just that I told myself that however angry I am, I would never attack his sense of honor and integrity. And this is why we have always been able to resolve our crisis. How do we behave during conflict? During conflict, couples are more prone to make a negative statement than they are when there is no conflict. A spouse is also more likely to respond with negative behavior when the partner does anything perceived to be negative. Most of the negativities witnessed in marriage are indeed offshoots of the conduct of spouses. What we see is thus reciprocity of negatives. I do wrong, and in vengeance you reciprocate with wrong. This has become overt signature of marital disaffection. Don't forget Allah says in the Quran. It's one of those verses we read when we conduct our marriages. It says, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا يُصْلِحْ لَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُمْ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. That is, you should always say straight words, say pleasant things to one another anytime you have issues to discuss with one another. Allah would, of course, make your way better for you and will make your actions also good for you. One of the greatest challenges for couples is that state of mind in pre-conflict situations. A spouse who is stressed at work or sees himself or herself as being unfulfilled is likely to be more conflict prone than one who is happy and fulfilled. This state of mind usually elicits poor responses at the outset of conflict, and expressions that could have repaired the situation are left unspoken. For example, when a spouse wishes to say, "Darling, you are not listening to me," the state of mind steps in and the thoughts are delivered in negative non-verbal mode through irritation, sadness, and withdrawal. In response, the other partner reacts, thereby continuing the cycle of negative behavior. If, on the other hand, the response to the complaint had been something like, "Sorry, please finish what you were saying," the conflict would be avoided. Several researches have shown that in most, but not in all cases, the husband at the time of conflict withdraws, and while wife responds with hostility. This agrees with several studies showing that wives display more negative behavior than husbands, who most often do not respond or do not have enough verbal resources to respond with, and therefore react with disengagement, or withdrawal. Few of them with low tolerance threshold resorts to violence. It has also been observed that the phenomenon of using withdrawal as a response is common to both genders. For example, when a man desires change, the woman is the one who withdraws. And when it is the woman that desires change, the man is most likely going to be the one to withdraw. Marital conflicts assume different forms. Occasionally, they deteriorate into an all-out war. Most often, however, they are skirmishes fought in subtle ways. Verbal abuse, stoic silence, public criticism, sarcastic remarks, intimidation, demeaning remarks, and subtle or manifest indifference. Such actions tend to weaken the foundation upon which marriage is built. Conflict in marriage is not necessarily bad or sinful. The determinative factor is how the conflict is handled. If a conflict is used constructively to enhance communication and deepen understanding, then it can strengthen and solidify a marriage covenant. When a married couple tells me that they have never had an argument or conflict during their 30 to 40 years of marriage, I assume that one of two things must be true of them. One, either they are not telling the truth, or two, their relationship must be rather superficial and boring. Islam frowns at pretense and all manifestations of falsehood. It is wrong to pretend that all is well with a relationship when, in fact, all is not well. Such attitudes allow challenges to turn into permanent problems. Islam acknowledges our frailty as well as our mutual dependence on each other. Many a time we pay allegiance to a fake sense of honor by reacting negatively when our partner reports us to a third party. While it is wrong to be indiscriminate in peddling stories of our weakness, as a family, it is a social decision and indeed a religious injunction to seek the assistance of just arbiters in cases we are too impatient, arrogant, or distraught to settle among ourselves. It is disturbing to observe that Muslims generally in this part of the world have not fared well in managing and resolving marital conflicts and disharmony. The cause of this is that there are no organized structures for handling conflicts, and when there are, the personnel involved are either untrained or do not possess the required experience in conflict resolution. It is often thought in Muslim circles that long years of marriage and knowledge of Islam are enough to qualify a person to become a marital conflict resolution personnel. And this accounts for the dearth of Muslim professionals in the fields of marriage, psychology, guidance and counseling, and social anthropology in this part of the world. While knowledge of Islam and long years of experience may assist a marriage counselor, they do not make him necessarily a good conflict resolver. Conflict resolution is an art that is ever expanding in a continuum as human natures and attitudes evolve and fluctuate in accordance with the ever-increasing new challenges to which human beings are exposed. Those who should resolve marital conflicts therefore require certain skills to make them function better. This, however, does not mean that they have to go to school to learn these skills. Specially designed workshops and seminars facilitated by professional therapists, not academics, can assist in this regard. For the purpose of this lecture, I examine briefly 7 major causes of marital conflict and disharmony. There are as follows. 1. Personality differences. These include temperamental differences, intellectual differences, and spiritual differences. 2. Occupational tensions. This is when the job or vocation of one party affects the well-being of the family. In such a situation, the vocation stands between the fulfillment of marital duties and responsibilities, and gradually resentment will set in to upset the relationship. 3. Role conflicts. At times, the understanding of couples about their roles in the family are at variance, and disharmony comes alive. 4. In-law pressures. Some families at times find it difficult to let go of their child, and the child, man or woman, ends up not adjusting to marital life because he or she lives perpetually in the shadow of his or her parents. 5. Sexual adjustments. The sex drive of one partner may overwhelm the other partner or fall below his or her expectations, and this often leads to frictions of varying dimensions. 6. Economic challenges. Issues of marital expenses or change in the economic fortunes of the head of the family may also cause serious frictions in the family. 7. Social circle tensions. The social status of one of the couple or change in the social status may also affect the well-being of the family. This list of causes is not exhaustive. There can still be more. There may be other causes, and they may differ in accordance with the psychosocial environment in which a couple find themselves. Resolving marital conflicts. Thinking about resolving conflicts, 2 verses from the scriptures come to my mind. One from the Holy Quran and the other from the Bible. Allah says in Quran chapter 41, verses 35 to 37. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا سيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. And good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is best, and lo, he between whom and thyself was enmity will become as though he were a warm friend. But none is granted it save those who are steadfast, and none is granted it save those who possess a large share of good. And if an incitement from Satan incites thee, then seek refuge in Allah. Surely he is hearing and all-knowing. Do not repay any evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord." On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. This is found in Romans 12, verses 17 to 21. Conflict often makes 2 loving spouses look like enemies. One spouse may start doubting the sincerity of the other and therefore open the doors of suspicion. Many conflicts often emanate from faults and weaknesses. We all have faults, and faults are not sins, my brothers. Faults could be as a result of the weaknesses of one spouse's personality. If conflict comes from trying to change his spouse, the spouse making the effort should not forget that only Allah can change people. Other conflicts emanate from unintended emotional injury. When a partner hurts your feelings and he or she didn't intend to, although we might think otherwise, it becomes easy to fall into the abyss of resentment and blame because it is unintended. The accused partner feels hurt because the other partner has shown lack of trust. As a Muslim, if you find yourself in a similar partner, in a similar situation, you can express how deeply hurt you are by saying something like, "I know you didn't intend to hurt me, but I explained how you feel." Always give your spouse the benefit of the doubt most of the time. What you are unhappy about is not meant to hurt you. Rather, it is a misunderstanding or an accidental prick on a psychological or emotional wound that may be there for many decades, possibly even from childhood. For instance, a wife who was neglected by her father during the childhood days may be taken back emotionally to those painful days whenever her husband inadvertently does anything that looks like neglect. Some conflicts also come into being as a result of how preferences are managed by a couple. If a spouse thinks strongly about something and the other spouse is forced to embrace that preference, a conflict may occur. This is why a spouse should try to feel the interest and passion of the other partner. If it is not about changing one's preference for the partner, but understanding how much the preference means to him or her, they can choose to explore their preferences separately or take turns to do it, depending on the nature of the preferences. Allah invites the spouses, particularly the offended spouse, to righteousness and compassion. This is not a self-righteousness and better than you attitude, but a humble heart that acknowledges the weakness of human beings generally. Several rules have been suggested by various therapists and specialists in managing marital conflicts and eliminating disharmony in the home. They include the following. 1. Commitment to the sacredness of the marriage covenant. 2. Honesty and fairness in handling the conflict. 3. Resisting the lure of anger and excessive rage. Choice of befitting time to discuss a problem. Focus on the current issues at stake. Deep listening with compassion and selecting wise words. Readiness to forgive and forget. These are time-tested rules by that who have been used by couples all over the world. And if tactfully followed, they can help a Muslim couple turn conflicts into opportunities to build a stronger home. Some conflicts are inevitable in every marriage because no two persons have exactly the same personalities, attitudes, and values. Some of the differences do not come to light until the couple have been married for some time. When the differences appear, some conflicts are bound to arise. There is nothing wrong with conflicts, provided they serve a constructive purpose by improving communication and strengthening marital relationships. Certain conflicts can bring about deep resentment, which, if not addressed, can devastate a marriage or damage the psychic health of one or both partners. Conflicts per se are not necessarily bad or sinful. It is the way the conflicts are approached that determine their impact on the marriage relationship. Conflicts may destroy a marriage, but they may also strengthen it. A successful Muslim marriage is not necessarily one in which there are no conflicts, but rather one in which the partners have learned to resolve their differences openly, honestly, and constructively. When a couple engages in name-calling, ridiculing, and belittling each other, the result will only widen the gap between them. To prevent conflict from deteriorating into an all-out war, it is important to observe the 7 basic steps that had been mentioned above. These steps, if followed, will enable a Muslim couple to handle their conflicts constructively, turning them into opportunities for removing obstacles to a stronger marriage. Commitment to the sacredness of the marriage covenant. This is taking those solutions one after the other and explaining them. The first rule in handling marital conflict successfully is to be totally committed to preventing your marriage covenant. It is only within the context of a loving and irrevocable commitment that marital conflicts can be successfully resolved. When couples are determined not to let anything or anyone put asunder the marital unions established by Allah, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallam is reported to have said, "La yafruku mu'minun mu'minatan in kariha minha shay'an radiya minha shay'an akhar." Let no believing Muslim hate his wife. If there is anything he dislikes in her, there are other things in her that please him. When such a commitment exists, the couple can risk being honest and open in discussing their differences. If we are deeply committed to preserving our marriage covenants, we will not allow any issue to divide us. We will not permit any argument to degenerate into a hostile confrontation. We will not waste our time quarreling over things that cannot change. Most of the differences in marriage can, by Allah's grace, be overcome, but there are also inherited or acquired characteristics which we cannot change. There is no point in my wife's criticizing me for my baldness or for my heavy snoring. Similarly, there is no point for me criticizing my wife for the shape of her nose or for the extra weight she has gained since we got married 20 years ago. Being committed to preserving our marriage covenant means to ask Allah to make us willing to accept what we cannot change, to give us the courage to change what needs to be changed, and to give us wisdom to know the differences. A total commitment is only possible by taqwa, that is God consciousness, and divine grace. It is Allah alone that can give us the power to hold fast to our commitments. He has joined our lives together, and it is He alone who can help us stay together when conflicts arise. He wants us to enjoy happy, harmonious marriage relationships. He answers our prayers when we seek His support for our homes, but He needs our cooperation through obeying His injunctions. We must therefore partner with Him to make our marriages work. We must pray together every day and rededicate ourselves to our commitment. We must ask Him for His wisdom and grace to hold our hands and lead us to the path of those that have been singled out by Him for His favors. The couple that prays together stays together. The second point, honesty and fairness in handling the conflict. A second important rule in handling marital conflict is to be honest and fair. Couples who are committed to preserving their marriage covenants will not engage in dirty fighting, hitting below the belt, or lying to win the argument. Muslims are enjoined to abstain from all kinds of falsehood in all affairs. Islam abhors falsehood in mundane activities and more so in marital relationships. It is essential for a couple to commit themselves to an honest relationship so that when conflicts develop, they will not fall into the trap of lying to each other just to win the argument. From the very beginning of their relationship, a couple should commit themselves to being totally honest with each other. They need to tell themselves in their hearts, I will not try to cheat my partner by playing games. I promise to be honest with him or her, and I expect the same. If a conflict occurs, I will not resort to unfair practices to win. This is my home, not a political martyrdom. The object of conflict should not be not to find fault or to access blame, but to resolve problems. Marriage is not a competitive sport, but a cooperative endeavor. When a problem occurs, the goal should not be to determine who is right and who is wrong, but to find a satisfactory solution. The attitude of partners, according to the Stephen Gulan, should not be a win or lose approach. That is, every solution involving a winner or a loser. Rather, the attitude of partners should be a win or win approach. The couple faces the problem together, and when a solution is found, they both win. When the interest of spouses during conflicts is for each to win an argument, ultimately, they both become losers. First, because they will often resort to unfair tactics to win. And second, because the outcome of the conflict will be a weaker relationship where feelings of resentment and bitterness remain and eventually lead to new confrontations. Thus, it is most important for a couple to handle conflict with honesty and fairness, seeking the best solution to a problem, regardless of whose idea it is. Another point, resisting the lure of anger and excessive rage. Besides being committed to honesty and fairness in handling conflict in marriage, the third rule is to control one's anger. The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is reported to have said, "Awwal ghadabi junun wa akhiruhu an-nadam." The beginning of anger is madness, and its end is regret. However, this does not mean that a Muslim should never feel or express anger. Rather, it means that sincere people will not allow their anger to take over their hearts and blur their vision. Something essential will be missing in a marital partner who is unable to feel or express anger. There is a right kind of anger. It is a feeling of indignation at what is wrong, accompanied by a desire to reform. A marriage covenant would lose its meaning if, for example, spouses would not become angry at the infidelity of their partners. Anger is a natural urge, and it must be moderated by sound intellect and piety. It becomes sinful when it is expressed through outbursts of temper, dirty or insulting language, or physical violence. Unbridled anger is a deadly weapon which must be banished from the Muslim life. But the anger, which is disciplined, selfless, and pure, can be a great moral force in the world. As human beings, we are often victims of our ego and our low desires, such as pride, selfishness, and impatience, which sometimes explode in uncontrolled outbursts of anger and irritation. This ugly side of our nature is revealed especially in marriage, because it is a haven of intimate relationship and a place where we can safely blow off our steam and release our frustrations. At home, we can safely unload our temper, anger, and tensions. Our angry outbursts, offensive remarks, and sharp retorts often wound our partners, who may also reveal their own ugly nature by retaliating with similar outbursts of rancor. Angry words, once spoken even unintentionally, are deadly weapons that can destroy our homes permanently. When a man, in a fit of anger, tells his wife, "Let's face it, I do not love you anymore," he will inflict upon her a permanent wound. Similarly, when the woman responds with a counter retort, "Thus, no wonder you act so irresponsibly. After all, your father died in a mental hospital." Such evil words cannot be easily forgotten. Your partner may later say, "I forgive you," but deep inside, the hurt caused by those words may never be healed. If a conflict gets out of control in a marriage, the only way to calm the storm is for the more spiritually mature partner to break the circle of mutual attack by refusing to retaliate at the time of conflict. This is the only way to bring to an end a marital fight. Another point: choice of befitting time to discuss a problem. This leads us to consider a fourth rule, which is to choose an appropriate time to discuss a problem. This is certainly true of marital conflict. Marriage counselors agree that timing is critical to constructive resolution of conflict. George Garr and Peter Wyden write, "Far too many fights become needlessly aggravated because the complaint opens fire when his partner really is in an appropriate frame of mind, or is trying to dash off to work, or trying to concentrate on some long-delayed chore that he has finally buckled down to. Indeed, there are times when failure to delay or to advance the timing of a fight can have cataclysmic consequences. There may be times when an issue has to be resolved immediately in most cases. However, conflicts develop over a period of time and can be temporarily put off until an appropriate time is fixed. This is the procedure followed in most organizations, and it should be followed in marriage. A basic rule to remember regarding the timing for discussing problems is avoid raising them just before anything that will not provide adequate time to satisfactorily deal with them. For example, the time just before a meal, just before going to bed, just before making love, just before going to work, or just before going to a function is inappropriate for dealing with unpleasant disagreements. I repeat. For example, the time just before a meal, just before going to bed, just before making love, just before going to work, or just before going to a function is inappropriate for dealing with unpleasant disagreements. The best time to discuss sensitive issues or serious differences is when both husband and wife are well rested, wide awake, and feeling at ease. At such favorable times, one can be more rational, considerate, and accommodating. A wise husband or wife who knows the importance of proper timing for discussing serious and disagreeable things will say, "I don't think this is the best time to discuss this matter? Why don't we deal with it later on when the children are in bed or after we have rested? Having said this, we must set a time and keep the appointment. Another important rule regarding timing is not to prolong the discussion unduly. Anger, conflicts, and negative feelings must be resolved as soon as possible, because the longer we postpone resolving a conflict, the more difficult it will be later on. Another point, focus on the current issue at stake. A fifth important rule to remember in handling marital conflict is to focus on the issue at hand. When a couple chooses an appropriate time to discuss a certain problem, they should use that time to address that particular issue and not to bring up all their past problems. The sixth one, deep listening with compassion and using wise words. Closely related to a responsible attitude of focusing on the issues at hand is Rule 6. Listen carefully to the words of your partner and speak tactfully. Conflict in marriage should serve to improve communication by helping partners know better how each feels and thinks about an issue. Communication presupposes listening. Learning to listen carefully to the words of a mate is essential in handling conflict. Yet, this rule of effective listening is most difficult to implement because in a conflict situation, when a person is talking, the other is not listening, but is thinking about how to respond. The louder our voices and the uglier our words, the less our spouses would listen, and the poorer will be our communication. A Muslim is called upon to refrain from harsh words and to engage instead in dignifying speech, which imparts grace and encouragement to others. This requires learning to be courteous and tactful in our speaking. Tact involves being sincere and open while at the same time showing respect for the other person's feeling and being careful not to hurt them unnecessarily. The Holy Prophet Muhammad SAW is a perfect example of forbearance and courtesy even towards his persecutors. As his followers, we should manifest the same attitude, especially towards our family members. Last on the list, readiness to forgive and forget. The success of the preceding 6 rules is resolving marital conflict is largely dependent upon the 7th rule, which is to be willing. In every marriage, there are times when conflicts become uncontrolled and irrational. There are situations when, because of fatigue, pride, selfishness, anxiety, the ugly side of our nature breaks out in angry outbursts, cutting remarks, abusive language, or irrational accusations. Such behavior awakens the equally ugly side in our mates, who may retaliate similarly with angry and abusive language. The only way to bring a conflict which has gotten out of control to a satisfactory end is for one partner to break the circle of vengeance or urge to retaliate by forgiving the other partner for the hurt received. This forgiveness should not be on the condition that they promise never to wrong us again, but simply because we acknowledge our own weaknesses as well as the weaknesses of our partner, and we also appreciate Allah's forgiveness of our sins many times over. This means that when we forgive, we must be willing to forget forget the wrong we have suffered. Allah says, and consult with them in kindness. And if you dislike them, it may be that you dislike a thing wherein Allah has placed much good. This is found in Quran chapter 4, verse 20. Forgiveness in a marriage covenant involves forgetting the wrongs a mate has committed and choosing not to recount them later. If we continue to remember and to bring up past grievances every time a conflict breaks out, then we have not truly forgiven our mate, because genuine forgiveness means blotting out past wrongs from memory. Such forgiveness is possible when we have personally experienced the blessing of Allah's forgiveness in our lives. When the love of Allah becomes firmly rooted in our hearts, we develop the motivating power to forgive. Genuine forgiveness makes us free to love, to trust, and to grow with our mates. It enables us to break the cycle of retaliatory attacks. If we have been wounded by the words or actions of our mates, we refuse to retaliate by returning words or actions in kindness. Such an attitude can calm tensions and create a pleasant atmosphere conducive to a rational discussion of the problem. In conclusion, conflicts are raw materials for becoming better human beings. This is because through them we understand and appreciate our weaknesses. They also open the doors to better communication, which underplays the influence of ego and makes mutual forgiveness easy. Forgiveness thus gives us a chance to begin again and develop a stronger relationship because it is based on the power of forgiving love, which can conquer conflict and reconcile us to Allah and to one another. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I want to thank you sincerely, at least for spending 5 minutes beyond the actual time. Although I was looking at the paper that I won't be able to finish it. In fact, he has even rushed it with techniques. So thank you very much for the lecture. However, we have those who will discuss the matter. You know, it's an interactive section where you and me going to contribute, including those who are here. So I will call Dr. Sani to set the ball rolling as the moderator of this section, who will start throwing questions out, especially when we did the last pre-Chanata seminar, where people are sending very hot arguments to the center. So, and with those questions and the answers, because of a time factor, we are unable to deal with it seriously. So this time around now, you are here before me to throw more questions. But the one we have, let us throw it out first, so you can understand it. Dr. Sani Sab, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So to be there.
Is on the right table. Once again, we welcome us all to this session.
Miss everything.
I gbogbo wa sí àbọ̀ sí abala àwọn àyè fún ètò ìṣẹ̀dáta ti òní. A máa dá àdàpọ̀ Yorùbá àti ìgbò àdàbà ìgbìyànjú. A sọ ìsọ́ṣù tí máa yé wa díẹ̀. Alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ ni pé bá a ṣe máa ṣe ètò táàfin ní máa ní wàhálà nínú ilé òun nìkan tá à ń sọ. Ṣùgbọ́n àkànní sọ àwọn nǹkan yìí lásán bí kò ṣe pé a fẹ́ sọ wọ́n ká lè bá a máa rí pé ìjọba gbòòrò sí i. Ẹgbẹ́ bá ṣe mọ̀ pé fọ́wọ́n tá a bá ṣe ètò ìṣirò táàbí statistics tí ó bá jẹ́ pé 60,000 làwọn amájẹ́ àtàwọn Nàìjíríà lónìí gẹ́gẹ́ bí dọ́kúmẹ́ǹtì wa tí a bá ṣe tàbílì rárá táà ṣe wá sí fẹ́líbọ̀dì tẹ́líbọ̀dì ò lè jọ́n táwàtà wà nílé tí àwọn wọ́n bá fẹ́ra wọn káláwọn kéjèjì ta ní 40,000 ní wọ́n tán tí máa rí tó wá fẹ́ra wọn ní méjì a máa ní 20,000 families in the next 10 years tí àwọn 20,000 families ẹ máa bí ọmọ mẹ́rin times 20,000 families ẹ ó máa jẹ́ 80,000 láì ṣe tàbílì in the next 30 years ẹ ká ti 200,000 láì ṣe tàbílì tí a bá tó lé wa dáadáa tí àwọn ọmọ tá a bí ń fẹ́ra wọn tó wá bímọ mẹ́rin ó yẹ ká máa pọ̀ sí ni tàbá wá ti pé 100 years ní Nàìjíríà tí a pọ̀ ní 60,000 lọ ó jọ pé nǹkan ṣe wá Bàbá máa bèrè pé ṣáà bímọ ni.
In English now. In English now.
A máa bèrè pé ṣáà wà bímọ ṣáà 100,000 ti gbà yẹn 400 years wá bí 60,000 lọ́ní. A dẹ̀ ń ṣe tablig. À ń ṣe tablig. À ń bímọ àṣẹ gbogbo ẹ̀. A dẹ̀ bí 60,000 lọ. Ló fi jẹ́ pé ètò yóò ṣe pàtàkì fún wa. What I have said in Yoruba is that we are discussing marital disharmony at this session, but we are linking that marital disharmony and having a very lovely home. We are looking at it in the light of growing the Jamaat, which is the theme of this workshop. And I make a statistical assertion. There is 60,000 in the Jamaat now, and we have 40,000 of unmarriable children or youths. If we marry among ourselves, and from that 40,000 unmarriable ages, we have 20,000 families from them. If one marries the other, the 40,000 will become 20,000. However, if those 20,000 families have 4 children, in the next 30 years, we should have had 20,000 families. We are not adding the 20,000 that the Ansarullah and Ladinawa are married to it. We are not even adding the people who are married. You know, they are still members of the Jamaat, 60,000. If those 20,000 families has 4 children each, that should have been 80,000 children from that family. And we should be able to achieve that in 30 years. That shows that in the next 30 years, aside our 60,000 population now, we should have another 80,000 from our childbirth in the marriage. And if all of them are Ahmadis, we should be above around 120, 140,000 in the next 30, 40 years. And I say that if you have celebrated 100-year centenary of the Jamaat, and we are still 60,000 from 100 years ago, then something is wrong. It's either we are not being tabligh at all, or we are not having children, or we are having children and they are not in this Jamaat. That should be our concern. And the concern should be that, how old am I? How many children do I have? Are my children married within the Jamaat? Are my children? That is when we will be able to dissolve Shahada really, and we can together look at growing the Jamaat through this Shahada. As that Imam Mahdi has advised us that we should have children so that we can grow the Jamaat. And if you are having children and the Jamaat is not growing, we are doing tabligh and the Jamaat is not growing, then we need to go and sit down and look at our Shahada very, very well. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí mo ṣe sọ ní Yorùbá ọ̀nà mo tẹ́ láti sọ lóyìnbó yẹn wípé tá a bá ń ṣe tabligh tá a bá ń bímọ tá a bá pọ̀ sí ó yẹ ká àgbàlagbà lọ rò ó ṣé àbímọ ní sọ́nà yà wá lágàn ni àbí àyàgàn àwọn ọmọ wa ò dúró ní ìjọmọ́ àbáwọn ọmọ wa ò fẹ́yàn ní ìjọmọ́ láti wá ń kéré sí nítorí pé tèmi àjà òní bá fẹ́ ra wa ó yẹ ká mọ̀ pé ó yẹ ká lọ́mọ mẹ́rin tá a bá tiẹ̀ ṣe tabligh bí àwọn jẹnẹrì ẹdún táwọn mẹ́rẹ̀ẹ̀rin yẹn bá ṣe amadíà ìyẹn náà ti ní 4 bàyà ti nìyẹn.
Moderator, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me give you a typical support and practical one for that matter.
Yes, sir.
I remember the third Caliph, when he came to Nigeria, and some region, you know them now, Okun people. Yes, Aigunlegbede. They confronted the Caliph, they did give birth to children, and some of them, when you see some of them in bed, not at least the minimum wife they have is 2, 3, 4 like that. And most children from Gbederia today, they are the birth children that became Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. So that's a proposal for keeping the Jamaat forward.
Jazakumullah khairan sir. Wọ́n dá bàbá sọ fún wa ní wípé tábà wo example jẹ ayébúlẹ̀ bẹ̀bẹ̀ nígbà tí tọ́kàlífà wá orímọ̀ ọ̀la wọ́n complain fún wọn wípé àwọn èèyàn máa gbàjọ mọ́ tọ́kàlífà wá fún wọn ní àmọ̀ràn wípé táwọn èèyàn bá gbàjọ mọ́ ẹ fi wọ́n lẹ̀ ẹ máa níyàwó kẹ ẹ máa bímọ ẹ máa pọ̀ sí wọn lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ ló dẹ̀ níyàwó ìtóbi kéré jù ló bọ́mọ méjì ó dẹ̀ fi pọ́mọ méjì òun yẹn owó wà nínú ìjọmọ́ àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ ni wọ́n wá ń gbòòrò sí nínú ìjọmọ́ mbẹ́ tẹ́ bá lọ báwọn ṣe máa ń calculate world population ní epidemic ẹ̀rọ láti calculate world like that the world will be kìnnìkan billion in 2004 it is a multiplying effect of marriages la máa ń lò wípé tẹ́ bá tóye báyìí nígbà báyìí tí ẹ bá ń bímọ mẹ́rin tẹ́lẹ̀ fertility rate is 4 or 5 iye tẹ́ máa jẹ́rè nígbà báyìí tẹ́ bá fẹ́ ṣe population control a máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ṣe òfin pé má bí ju ọmọ kan lọ má bí ju ọmọ méjì lọ population bá fẹ́ remain the way they are ọmọ méjì lọ bá ní so that tí ọkọ̀ àjàwó bá ti kú àwọn méjì náà ló máa replace wọn population yìí ò ní grow but tí wọ́n bá ń bí ju ọmọ méjì lọ mẹ́ta ẹgbẹ́ population yẹn máa grow sí i tí population bá wá ti wá grow ẹ̀ka jókòó káwò òun ló máa jẹ́ ìpìlẹ̀ discussion tí a máa ní lónìí a lè ti ní àwọn àgbààgbà tí wọ́n bá wà ní discussion yẹn I have with me those who will join me in this discussion. I have the National Tarbiya Secretary of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. He also doubled as the chairman Islamic Committee of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria, and he's also a very strong member of the National Committee of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. I'm glad to welcome to this discussion Alhaji Engineer MM Shitu Saeed. You are welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Also, an individual will be joining me on this table for this discussion is my Oga Ayada Committee level. Is the National Tarbiya Secretary of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. He's also the chairman of the National Committee of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria, and is a member of the Islamic Committee Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. I want to kindly welcome to the discussion Brother Bashir bin Oyituji. You are welcome, sir. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We will take some few questions at the beginning of this program. At a point, we will give audience also the opportunity to also ask their questions. So my first question will go to Alhaji MM Shitu Saeed. In 1 or 2 minutes, we have seen that people go engage into divorce in the Jamaat. People go into dialogue. We have had issues that we have resolved, and some of the issues, no matter what we say at the Islamic Committee level, which other committee level, people are adamant in going to divorce. Islam permits it, but permits it with some condition. It is not something that is done by Allah, and it's not something that is done by the Prophet. Can you state it clear? What are the conditions Islamically that can make a man divorce his wife? Maybe we start from that. What are the conditions that will make a man want to say that spiritually I want to divorce my wife and I have Islamic condition to do so? That's our problem.
Typical Islamic questions. Nígbà mo fẹ́ ṣe tẹ́sítì tí àti pé ní títí ṣé àárọ̀ làṣọ wà ọ̀kẹ́ ọ̀ ẹ̀ lè get the good result ẹ ti jẹ yán ẹ ti jẹ gbogbo ṣé àárọ̀ là lágbára lọ.
God has created
human beings,
and some of them are Muslims. And he gave
no.
When a Muslim marries, God says, I hate separation. I hate divorce. So divorce comes even from a man, because if you don't frustrate a woman, he will not say he wants to divorce you. And Allah has commanded in the Quran that you men are the leader of women. Arijalun qawwamuna ala nisa. So if you don't forget yourself as a Muslim, you cannot even dream of saying you want to divorce your wife. So if you are now looking for condition to divorce, that means where Allah can even allow that is that when your woman goes outside Islam itself, I mean, maybe he has been so fetish, he's been so deep in shirk somehow, maybe you can be thinking of that. But besides that, there's no condition at all. A man can say he wants to divorce his woman. If you are if there's a conflict and your woman goes so violent that he wants to dagger you, or he wants to, maybe you are in the, you want to, it must be a cause. You have to study very well that you don't go to that corner at all where your woman will be so angry, and then now so violent to now think to kill you or to wound you. So I don't see any condition where a man can be thinking of, say, he want to divorce his wife. Or than kufur.
From the side of our Tariya secretary, I know his passion against divorce at the committee level. He doesn't want divorce at all, and he will do everything to persuade the couples to always unite and come together. So he has told us that the only reason why we should divorce our wife is maybe he has left the fold of Islam. He has professed kufru, then we can start thinking of divorce. At that time, maybe divorce may be accepted to us. Mr. Aredu Sahib is the representative of the guest lecturer at this occasion. He's a Murabi Silsila of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. Come and sit down here.
He asked me to read paper. He didn't ask me to answer.
You are a graduate of Arabic and Islamic study, and I know you also have a master in that calling. You are a trained missionary of the Jamaat at the Jamia Mubashirin Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria. Religiously and frankly speaking, what are the conditions for divorce as stated by Allah in the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Assalamu alaikum to Allah barakatuh. First of all, in Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallam is reported to have said, one of those things that is allowed, permitted by Allah the Almighty, but he hates that it happens, is divorce. When you look at this statement and you look at it critically, you would know that conditions may warrant one divorcing his or her partner. But in all ramifications, we should be extremely, very, very patient and accommodating. Whatever thing or anything that happens not at the slight of any occurrence that will make one say, I want to divorce my wife. Like Alaji Shitu has rightly put it, it is not only for kufri, it's not only that. There are reasons that one could make up and say, I want to divorce my wife if my partner does this or does that. That is if one is not patient enough. Look at the lecture I have just read, prepared by Dr. Said Timei. He made mention of one thing that is one of those 7 points he wrote in resolving the crisis of disharmony among couples. He said, forgiveness, that we should try as much as possible to have that spirit of forgiveness. Whatever thing that happens, even if you find your wife committing or a crime of infidelity, for example, now a partner sleeps with another person, apart from his own wife or husband, that can also call for divorce because he has actually done something very, extremely, very wrong. But at that, if one still wants to exhibit that quality of a Muslim, as taught by Muhammad sallallahu, like in the speech I have just read, he said, it is not a crime that one is upset or one shows anger, even at the incident of infidelity. But the moment one is angered with that infidelity, and you see people coming into it to resolve the crisis, and you consider the pros, what are likely to be the disadvantages of divorcing your partner, if you see it being greater than telling him to stay, you consider her or him to stay. That is it. Because it is not that divorce that you should also emphasize on. If you know, and if the two parties are now exhorted, they are now advised, based on the Islamic provisions, and they still say, I want to do it, no problem, nobody holds him back. But what is right is that you should try as much as we can to forgive one another over anything that may happen, except that kufru. If it is on the basis of kufru, of course, one may not be able to accommodate that.
Jazakumullah khairan, Missionary Sai, for the response. He has also emphasized kufru as a condition that might be looked into in divorce, and thereafter other things, even as wrong as infidelity, can actually be forgiven if Allah gives the spirit to do so. So we have seen that divorce is not really encouraged, and we should not go. The reason why I've asked this question is, when you see people coming to each other committee, they are coming with their mind made up already. And when they come with their stupid excuses, I will say stupid, because if you have something in your mind disturbing you, and you see elders saying this thing should not warrant divorce, and you see that individual insisting on divorce, then something is wrong. That's why what want us to clear our mind. In fact, things that come to National Itahata Committee should have been settled at home. You will tell the person at home, you know, agree. That's the man. You get to circle, you know, agree. We'll get to national. So you don't say you hotel, like them, huh? I said by Sadasa, after using all the proteins and good things in her, you now want to abandon her and leave. That's why I asked that question. If you see somebody sleeping beside you, ask them not to sleep again, no. Because the cause of marital disharmony is because some people sleep too much. When they are meant to be active, they are sleeping. And the wife will not like it. So if anybody is sleeping beside you, wake the person up. It's time for action. Let us listen attentively. Gbogbo nǹkan tó sọ fún wa tí mo fẹ́ sọ Yorùbá yẹn ṣé ìdájọ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn ni pé arígbáwọn èèyàn máa ń sọ pé mo fẹ́ kọ ìyàwó mi lẹ̀, mo fẹ́ kọkọ mi lẹ̀. Àwọn àrò pé bó ṣe wá ń di lemọ́ láàrin wa yìí, kí ló tiẹ̀ lè fa gan tá a bá ní ká wò ó gẹ́gẹ́ bí káwọn alálàáfà bá wa wò ó, kí ló lè fa nǹkan tá a máa fi kọra wa lẹ̀? Nígbà tí tàbí àṣekìtì máa sọ̀rọ̀, wọ́n ní nǹkan kan tó lè fa ká kọra wa lẹ̀, òun ni kéèyàn fi ìgbàgbọ́ ẹ̀ lẹ̀ kó lóun ò ṣe mùsùlùmí mọ́ àbí lóun ò ṣe mùsùlùmí Ahmadiyya mọ́, ipe fún ìdí ìyàsọ́pá àti ẹ̀fẹ́ kọ ẹni yẹn lẹ̀. Bàtà àbílọ́ missionary ẹdun náà, àwọn náà sọ pé ìyẹn náà ló ṣe kókó, lẹ́yìn ìyẹn kò sí nǹkan tí ìyàwó wa ò lè ṣe tí a lè forí jìn. Kéèyàn ti ẹ̀ka ọkùnrin mọ́yàwó ẹ̀ gan lórí gan, bó ṣe lè dùn tó tí wọ́n bá lè bá wọn sọ tọ́fọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ Ọlọ́run bọ́ wọn, tí àwọn náà dẹ̀gbọ́ wò ṣe mọ́ tó ní tó tọrọ dáríjì, wọ́n là lè rò ó pé ká tún dáríjì náà ká tún máa fẹ́ lọ. Wọ́n là lè ibi tó yẹ pé ká nẹ́mí ìdáríjì dé, a lè rò ó wípé ká dáríjì náà ká dẹ̀ máa fẹ́ pàtàkì àgbàgbà bá ti bá wa sọ tọ́dẹ̀ ti bá wa yanjú ẹ̀. Ipe ìyẹn náà fi ń yé wa wípé ká kọ ìyàwó ẹni sílẹ̀. Ó kì í ṣe àwọn tó yẹ pé a gbọ́dọ̀ sọ pé a kò ṣe fẹ́ kú gìrì ká fẹ́ ṣe, a gbọ́dọ̀ rò ó dáadáa ká gbọ́dọ̀ sáwọn àgbàgbà lẹ́nu nígbà tó bá ń bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ẹ̀. Màá wá lọ sọ́dọ̀ àbọ̀dá Bashirudeen Oyetunji Saheed tó jẹ́ Itahata secretary. Àgbà ọ̀jẹ̀ ni wọ́n nínú ètò ká dá sọ̀rọ̀ lọ́kọláya nínú Jamaatul Ahmadiyya. Wọ́n dẹ̀ ti wà lọ́fíìsì tipẹ́. Kí lẹ tiẹ̀ lè sọ fún wa láàrin ìṣẹ́jú méjì tẹ́ bá kà ní ení èjì ẹ̀ta ẹ̀rin àwọn nǹkan tí ẹ ti rí nírìírí yín tó máa ń mú kí àwọn ọkọ máa kọ ìyàwó wọn nínú jọmọ́ yìí, àwọn excuse táwọn èèyàn máa ń mú wá tẹ́ ti rí nínú ìrírí yín tó máa ń mú ọkọ kọ ìyàwó ẹ̀. Kí ni àwọn nǹkan tí ẹrù gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìrírí nínú ìjọsìn Ahmadiyya àṣẹ ìka fún wa láàrin ìṣẹ́jú méjì sí mẹ́ta?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Àkọ́kọ́ ilé tí ó ṣe àkọ́kọ́ nu tó máa ń fà tí ọkọ tàbí aya fi máa ń kọra wọn, òun náà ni àìsí ẹ̀kọ́ tàbí ìwà ọmọlúwàbí tó péye. Nítorí wípé tí èèyàn bá sọ pé mo fẹ́ fẹ́ ìyàwó, òun fúnra rẹ̀ ló kọ̀nfíìsì ọmọbìnrin láti gbà fún. Ó dàbí ẹni tó ra màálù ni, àti wo màálù àti ẹsẹ̀ màálù ta ló ní, òun ló ní gbogbo ẹ̀. Tá a bá fẹ́ ìyàwó tíyàwó bá dáa, kí la máa fi ń compensate àwọn ẹbí wọn? Bóyá ìyàwó wa ń ṣe dáadáa ńlé, ó ṣe dáadáa lóde, ó di gọ́vnọ̀ àbí ó ń hùwà dáadáa láwùjọ, kò sí nǹkan kan tá a máa fi ń compensate àwọn ẹbí wọn. So tó bá wá kù díẹ̀ káàtó tá a jọmọ lẹ́yìn Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam ní tòótọ́, tá a dẹ̀ ń sọ pé love for all, hatred for none, a rí i pé eléyìí ò tó ń ta láti fi jà. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n fún wa ní àpẹẹrẹ kékeré. Níjọ́ kan mo lọ sí hospital, wife mi fẹ́ bímọ, mo wá lọ sí hospital, mo wá ń dúró ti wife mi. Ó máa kan wá gbẹ ẹ̀jẹ̀ lára mi, ó wá ní ó ní mò ń ṣe bíi Christian tàbí àwọn mọ̀sùrùr. Mo wá ní àwọn náà pé mọ̀sùrùr, ó ní máa kan wà tí òun máa ń wo TV kan lọ́dọ̀ wọn, mọ̀sùrùr náà ń pè lórí wọn. Mo wá rí i pé Khalifa ló ń sọ. Ó ní wọn náà hospital ń bẹ̀ yẹn, ó láwọn náà máa ń ṣe bíi Christian tó máa ń tẹ̀lé ìyàwó wọn káàkiri tó máa ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn. Ó ní àwọn dá Muslim ò kí ẹ̀ nípa obìnrin, and that is into ẹ̀kọ́ tí aṣáájú Muhammad alayhi salam tó fi kọ́ wa nìyẹn. In tó ń fà á tí ìkọ̀sílẹ̀ fi pọ̀ jù, lóòótọ́ àwọn obìnrin ní ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn tán bá ṣe bí ẹ ń kàwé díẹ̀, wọ́n máa ń ní ìgbéraga. Yes, no doubt, mo rí i pé wọ́n máa ń ní ìgbéraga. In fact, ẹlòmíì gan tó bá ń bá Stanata sọ̀rọ̀, ẹ máa wò pé tẹ́lẹ̀ bá ń bọ́kọ̀ ẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ ńkọ́. Àwọn former mail wọ́n láli sister kan nígbà tí mò ń bá sọ ní don't tell me that. Former mail wá ní ṣé o mẹ́ tó ń bá sọ̀rọ̀ ṣá, ó ní ẹ̀gbọ́n nǹkan tó sọ fún mi ni, nítorí pé mo sọ pé kò respect ọkọ ẹ̀ tó. So reaction gbà mí tá bá kàn sọ̀rọ̀, àwo bẹ́ẹ̀ lómi ṣe ń ṣe sí àwa, so a ti mọ orí yẹn tó jẹ́ ńlé, bet ìyẹn ò ní kákọ̀, nítorí pé a rí nù àwọn ànábì Ọlọ́run ọba tí wọ́n fẹ́rù àwọn ìyàwó bẹ́ẹ̀. Ṣé rí kéèyàn kọ ìyàwó bí ẹni tí èèyàn ń ta Ọlọ́run ọba ní àyà ni. Aṣáájú Muhammad alayhi salam wọ́n fẹ́ ìyàwó méjì, alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ bímọ 3, ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì bí ọmọ 10. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ tó bímọ 3 ẹyọ kan kú, ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì tó bí ọmọ 10, 5 kú. Tẹ́ bá wá wò sí tán máa ń ṣó ọmọ Muhammad alayhi salam, wọ́n máa ń ṣó ọmọ 5, ọmọ second wife ni, tó ń túmọ̀ sí pé first wife ò tẹríba fún aṣáájú Muhammad alayhi salam. Tẹ́ bá sì wo àwọn kàlífà tó ń jẹ títí díẹ̀ ni ọmọ second wife ni. So kò ní ìdíkẹ́ báyàwó jà tó bá ń ṣe tí ò da, ọmọ ò ní lálùbáríkà ni, kò sí ògùn ẹ̀, kò sí ti dájúdù tó lè kí, ọmọ ò lè lálùbáríkà. So wá ìtẹ́fẹ́ kọ́ ní tó sì máa padà bàjà lọ́jọ́ alẹ́ sì ń bẹ náà làwọn ọmọ ẹ̀. So láti sọ pé a fẹ́ máa kọ́ nítorí pé ìwà ìgbéraga àbí àìmoore táwọn máa ń ṣe, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn ọkùnrin àìní tàríbíyà ló máa ń fà tá a fi máa ń kọ ìyàwó. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanallah bihamdi. A ti fẹ́ máa sọ̀rọ̀ Sada Sabdeh ti ń fún wa láwọn pọ́ìntì kan bí tẹ́lómi ò gbọ́ báyẹn, bọ̀ màá sì tún sọ fún wa ká lè gbọ́ dáadáa. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí Brother Bashir actually told us that from his own experience in that office, the major thing that causes divorce among us is poor religious education. Some of us don't know the importance of marriage. Some of us don't know the disapproval from God. God allows it, yes, but God is not happy with it. Many of us don't have that sense of responsibility. That's the cause of divorce. He also mentioned that pride from the side of the wife can also be a cause of divorce. Every man wants to recite the verse Arijalun Qawwamuna 'ala Nisa, and they don't want anybody to take that authority from them. So when a woman is already honestly proud, it can also cause marital disharmony, and the man might be willing to divorce. But certainly despite with Islamic education, we should be able to manage such women. Those are the major things he sees as the cause of divorce. He now said that no matter what a woman does, we should still try to keep the woman, because we should know that a disrespectful woman will not have successful children. So for us to also protect our children from not being successful, we try to manage the woman, make her submissive so that she can have lovely children and successful children in future. The other issue that we are moving to now is the issue of sexuality in marriage. We'll look at it in 2 forms. We have some males who are not doing well. When you see a woman honestly angry at times, she might not tell you. Even when she comes to another community, she will not say anything. She will just be saying some other thing. It might be the sexual problem at all. Some of us may actually not be given necessary sexual satisfaction or sexual comfort to our wives. On the other hand, too, there are times that as we grow up, our wives may not be able to satisfy. Should a wife getting old be a condition for polygamy? We know that polygamy is accepted in Islam, but should the fact that my wife is getting old be a condition to go and marry another wife? What are the conditions to actually go to polygamy?
Polygamy, the good office created by Almighty Allah, but with every wisdom that Allah introduces into it, that man should tap to practice polygamy. Polygamy is created to spread the love of Allah, to spread the taqwa. If a man is qualified after marrying a wife, you know, God said, even if you don't have that zeal, if you don't have that power, don't just think of it. That power does not mean the power for sexuality or for whatever, or power for money or whatever. The wisdom, that power is wisdom. If you don't have that wisdom, don't just go into it. But Allah even refers to that there is no amount of wisdom you want to practice. You cannot get that wisdom perfectly. But don't just neglect completely one aside. To marry 2-3 wives is just like winning. So when we say we want to populate the Jama, that is just the condition to go into polygamy. That is, you must have that mind that I want to win this soul to serve Allah. Any other condition is not there. If you want to think of sexual area that my first wife does not satisfy me, first ask this question: what exactly were you created for? And do you come to this world for sexuality, or what is exactly? You know, you cannot, a Muslim, when we find ourselves a Muslim on earth, you must know that you are conditional. You have been put under condition that if you don't get this, you will get this. So the one you get, you will thank Allah. The one you don't get, Allah has said, be patient with that. And there's a condition even in marrying. My wife used to tell me that he has got the wisdom of Allah or the advice of Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu when he advised that marry those who are virgin, marry those ladies that are virgin. He said the wisdom there is the virgin. He has never tasted any practice of sexuality or whatever from anybody. So the one he gets from his husband is what he gets. Either the husband can perform or he cannot perform much. That is the experience. He has never tasted any one from anywhere, and he's not going to taste it. So he will just keep herself there. If you want to marry the second wife, marry the virgin. You want to marry the third wife, marry the virgin. Then if you want to marry widow, you want to go to say, okay, the widow are on ground that they are looking for husband. Yes. But yet, the mind of Tabligh, that's widow, you want to be an umbrella for her, you want to take care of her, you want her to serve Allah to his death. That is what should be your priority in your thinking. So the purpose of going into polygamy should not be any other thing than jihad in the way of Allah.
Jazakumullah khairan, sir. Alhaji Sahib sọ fún wa yìí pé ìkọ́jẹ́ ká fi wọnú polygamy is to serve Allah. Ká dẹ̀ wo ṣáà ní ọpọlọ láti lè ṣe, bàbá ṣe wò bóyá ṣáà ní owó àti agbára láti lè ṣe náà. Wọ́n tó wá gbà wá níyànjú pé wọ́n tún sọ̀rọ̀ sexual incompatibility in marriage mọ́. Ìgbé nǹkan tó fi dáa kíyàn máa fẹ́ ẹni tí ò tí ì mọ ọkùnrin nìyẹn. Sódà nǹkan tó bá rí gbà lọ́dọ̀ ọkọ ẹ̀ náà ni mentality nǹkan tó ń rí. Ṣùgbọ́n mo fẹ́ sọ fàdájì pé social media ti da nǹkan rú nísìnyí o. Social media ti kọ́ àwọn èèyàn bó ṣe yẹ kí nǹkan rí. Àti ò bá ṣe dáadáa gan ti mọ̀ pé yóò ṣe dáadáa. Torí social media ti kọ́ ọba ṣe máa débẹ̀ náà, alájí sàrá ṣe máa débẹ̀. Mo ti mọ́ mẹ́mú kan sọ wípé kí má bàa gbàgbé ni ká lè débẹ̀. Pé social media náà ti ń kọ́ àwọn èèyàn ní oríṣiríṣi nǹkan tí wọn mọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ nísìn. Ṣùgbọ́n mísàrẹ́ ẹdún sọ kọ́kọ́ sí mi létí, mo fẹ́ fún ọkọ sọ ní ìṣẹ́jú kan kọ́ fẹ́ nara wọn sọ tó dáadáa ìpẹ́ inú àfà ni a ti gbọ́.
Jazakumullah khair. In as much as we agree that marrying one another is to promote piety and righteousness among ourselves, fine. That you are married to a woman or a wife and that woman cannot give you cannot satisfy your sexual urge. It is also one of the reasons, it can be one of the reasons one can get married to another wife. In fact, it is supported by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the second in his tafsir. You understand that if you observe that woman cannot give you that sexual compatibility, only what you need to do is you cannot do it secretly and you cannot do it to hurt that first wife. What Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, even the Khalifatul Masih the fifth, emphasizes is that you do not marry a second wife or third or fourth wife to spite the ones at home. You do not do it because you have one hatred for them or the other. No, whatever you want to do, it should be to promote that righteousness and fear of God. And if you know, for example now, if you are married to someone and cannot give you that sexual urge, are you expected to go and give it out when you have the urge? And somebody is there also, can also give that satisfaction to you. Legally, you are allowed to go into it. All you need to do is to do it legally, and you are permitted to do it under the Islamic law. That is my contribution.
Jazakumullah khairan. Kọ́bíyá rẹ̀ ẹdún sọ ni pé ká ní èèyàn bá rí pé ìyàwó ilé ẹ̀ kò lágbára tó òun, ó dẹ̀ rí pé ó lè di ọ̀nà sóhun lọ́rùn kó má di bí àwọn máa lé ọmọ ọdún 6 ọmọ ọdún 7 káàkiri àdúgbò, wọ́n wá gbé sórí headline igbe 50-year-old man or 60-year-old man sleeps with 10-year-old guy tó rán ní búrẹ́dì gbogbo ra búrẹ́dì wá. Mishari sọ pé irú ẹni bẹ́ẹ̀ ló rò pé bóyá kóun fẹ́ kan mú ìyàwó mi kó má di pé wàhálà á dì sí lọ́rùn. Bó nǹkan tí gbogbo wọn tẹnu mọ́ àtàlájì ṣìtò àti ara ẹnu ni pé a gbọ́dọ̀ pa kọ́ntì. Mo wá rò wípé tabálà gbọ́dọ̀ pa kọ́ntì tẹ́ pé torí pé ìyàwó wa ti darúgbó láyé fẹ́fẹ́ ìyàwó mi. Ṣó pọ́sibù kéèyàn má pàyà ìyá arúgbó tì fún ọmọge. Ó yẹ ká dúró nìyẹn o. Ọlọ́run ní ká má pa kọ́ntì nínú wọn. Èèyàn wá sọ pé ìyàwó ẹ̀ ti dàgbà wọ́n fẹ́ fẹ́ ìyàwó wọn lọ fọ́ṣọ̀rọ̀ lọ́mọge. Ṣé èṣò rí lọ tí tó máa pa ìyá tí báyìí tẹ́ pọ̀ lọ́mọge láwá fèsì? Ó dẹ̀ pé nǹkan tí alájí náà dápọ̀ sọ nìyẹn pé torí ìpayà Ọlọ́run a ṣe gbọ́dọ̀ fẹ́ àwọn ìyàwó wa. So lóòótọ́ ní bàláyé wà fún wa ipe tàbá mọ̀ pé agbára wa ju ti ìyàwó wa ní lọ tí ìyàwó wa náà dẹ̀ mọ̀ pàgbára wa ju ti òun lọ a lè fẹ́ ìyàwó mi ṣùgbọ́n ká ní lọ́kàn wípé a gbọ́dọ̀ pa ìyàwó alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ yẹn náà tì ẹ̀tọ́ wọn nípa tí oúnjẹ ara àti oúnjẹ ẹ̀mí a gbọ́dọ̀ máa rí pé à ń fún wọn bá ṣe ń fún ìyàwó kékeré náà.
Ṣẹ́rí ẹ má jẹ́ kí a parọ́ fúnra wa. Tí ṣẹ́rí Ọlọ́run ti ṣe ẹ̀dá wa èèyàn pé tí a bá ṣe ń dàgbà sí àwọn ẹ̀yà ara wa ó máa dàgbà. Ṣẹ́rí pé ìyàwó ti dàgbà kò ní okun láti ṣe bó ṣe tẹ́lẹ̀ mọ́. Bẹ́ẹ̀ náà lọkùnrin ẹ ní sùúrù máa jẹ́ ẹ ṣe sùúrù ẹ mo mọ̀ pé máa react ẹ ní ẹ ṣe sùúrù ẹ ṣe ó ń ṣe rí ẹ farabalẹ̀. Gbọ́dọ̀ láyà sí ṣe rí ẹ wo bí sábà ẹkùn ẹ wo bí bá ṣe pọ̀ tó ní báyìí sí tẹ́ bá wo àwọn àgbà tó wà níbi tó ti lé ní 60 ẹ bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ kẹ́rẹ́kẹ́rẹ́ ẹ máa ráwọn tó ń wá oríṣi àgbo káàkiri nítorí irinṣẹ́ yẹn ò ṣiṣẹ́ bí ti tẹ́lẹ̀ mọ́ òdodo ọ̀rọ̀ ni ẹ jẹ́ kó máa grókì lọ́kàn wa naturally you know your manhood will not work like before, and that is the way God has created it, and that's why you now find among many will now be looking for various herbs, and in the process they get their kidney, they get their liver damaged. A lot has happened. Some people have even lost their lives because they were looking for things that will enhance, you know, their sexual performance. So the thing is, Elijah mentioned you said it, look, is the purpose of our creation sex? Are we created to just be having fun with ladies? No, I am not an Islamic scholar. They are here. Our new Sada too is one of them. Oh, yes. You know, yes. You see, so the thing is, we must realize one fact. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that has many wives. How many of them were virgin? Most of them were, what do you call them? Widow. And because you know, when you go to war, some of the husbands, you know, were martyred, and they are left unmarried. You need to practice Islam, you know, in them, by marrying them. You can't just leave them alone without anybody, without any shelter. And that is why they are married. Ask those of us that decide to take 1, 2, 3 now. We have widows. We have widows, many of them. How many of us are marrying the widows? You now realize that people are just marrying for sexual interest. They just want to enjoy themselves. They are not marrying for Islamic purpose. And they will hide under the guise of, what do you call it generally? Polygamy. Islam accepts polygamy. Islam accepts polygamy. And when you see them, you know, going around with some ladies, before you know it, they got themselves impregnated. It's happening among us. And we talk of growing the Jamaat, Banzarullah. So that is the truth. We must accept one fact, that this is the way God has created us. If you don't want to accept, there's one this general saying, that kagba fọlọ́run ní símí, kagba fọlọ́run ní símí, kádàrá ò ṣe é kọ̀ láìgbà, kagba fọlọ́run ní símí. If you don't want to accept the faith, you know, that your manhood will naturally become weak, you know, then you are doing yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Sir, what the Noibami Sahib has told us is that while thinking of polygamy, we should remember that we are also getting old. And as our women are getting older in marriage, we are also getting old. And we might not be able to perform to expectation to the woman. So we must consider this before taking another wife. And even in taking it, we should still base it on the faith of Allah and with the intention of helping the cause of Allah, rather than thinking about sex alone. Thank you very much, sir. I have a contribution from Dr. Esonwa. He's giving that contribution from maybe the medical perspective. There's some of other reasons that can make people look for a second wife is when they are looking for male child. We still have to debate that among their fasts. She was looking for another child. She was looking for children, or looking for a sex of a gender of a child of our children, maybe male child or female child, be a condition for another marriage. When women are refusing sex at home, he said it can be a reason, which I also agree with. He said rejection of sex from women due to menopause. Some women believe that when they enter menopause, they should not have sex anymore. Because of that, they will now be refusing sex. Let me tell us point blank, from the medical perspective, that menopause has nothing to do with sexual intercourse. In fact, people tend to enjoy sex more during menopause because the vagina becomes tighter. The hormone that secretes the vagina, they have reduced, and the vagina will become more even tighter. So things that you have not enjoyed in the past, you can actually enjoy them in menopause. Let me tell you that point blank from medical point of view. Dr. Abdulgani, am I saying your mind, sir? Dr. Abdulgani is an expert in O&G. So menopause has nothing. No, sorry, right. Menopause has nothing to do with sexual intercourse. So we can still have sexual intercourse with our wives during menopause. Then he also stated that when women have 2 or 3 children and they want to stop, and the husband still want more, that can also be a reason for marrying another wife. Especially when we want to populate the Jamaat of Hazrat Imam Mahdi by having many children, we can go ahead to marry another wife. Nǹkan tí mo sọ ní èyìnbó ni pé nǹkan táwọn ọ̀dàn ìbá mi sọ fún wa ní pé bá a ṣe ń dàgbà sí gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọkùnrin tóbìnrin ń gbó sí náà ni nǹkan ọkùnrin àwọn àgbàlagbà náà máa weak sí. So ká tó fẹ́ ìyàwó mi torí ọjọ́ orí àbí torí pé ìyàwó wa ti gbó, ẹ ká rántí pàwa náà máa gbó, ká dẹ̀ má torí pé a fẹ́ bá obìnrin lájọṣepọ̀ nìkan ṣe ìgbéyàwó mi, ká rí pé a fẹ́ ṣe torí tọ́lọ́wọ́n ọba àti ti ànábì wa Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ní. Ẹlẹ́yìn ìgbà yẹn mo ní dọ́tọ̀ ẹ̀sán wàá fi yé wa pé ara nǹkan tó máa ń mú káwọn èèyàn tú fẹ́ ìyàwó mi òun náà ni pé bóyá èèyàn ń wọ́ ọmọkùnrin, bóyá ìyàwó èèyàn ò fẹ́ kéèyàn súnmọ́ òun mọ́, ó ń kọ oorun, bóyá ìyàwó yẹn tiẹ̀ ti dé, ó ti kò ṣe nǹkan oṣù mọ́, kò àfẹ́ kọkùnrin bóun lájọṣepọ̀. Mo wá fi kún wípé kóbìnrin má ṣe nǹkan oṣù mọ́ kò sọ wípé kọkùnrin má bàa lájọṣepọ̀. Ìfà wọn kọ́ máa sọ pé tọkùnrin bá bóbìnrin tí ò ṣe nǹkan oṣù mọ́ lájọṣepọ̀ ó máa sòpa, òun kọ́ ló ń fa kéèyàn sòpa, ọmọdé gan sòpa. Hydrocele àbí àìní àlá máa ń pè nípa nígbà tí ibi kóró ọmọkùnrin tó bá wú, àìdá bóyá omi ló rọ́ síbẹ̀ tá à ń pè ní hydrocele, àbí àìní àló ṣẹlẹ̀ tí ibi inú ìfun tó wọ inú scrotum ọkùnrin la máa ń pè ní. So ìyẹn ò ní nǹkan kan ṣe pẹ̀lú pé èèyàn bá obìnrin tí ò ṣe nǹkan oṣù mọ́ lájọṣepọ̀. Mo fi yé wa gan pé ńgbà tí obìnrin ò bá ṣe nǹkan oṣù gan mọ́ gan ni èèyàn máa ń gbádùn láti tún súnmọ́ jù, nítorí pé ńgbà yẹn gbogbo àwọn bí tẹ́ rò pé ó ti ṣe bákan tẹ́lẹ̀ yẹn á tún kóra jọ dáadáa sí i, nítorí pé àwọn hormones tó ń secret lára ẹ̀ ti máa lọlẹ̀, á jẹ́ káwọn ọ̀bẹ̀yẹn tún kóra jọ sí i, tó yẹ pé èèyàn á tún gbádùn nǹkan ẹ̀ gan ju tàtẹ̀yìnwá gan lọ. Ṣèyàn gbọ́dọ̀ torí pé ìyàwó ẹ̀ wá ṣe nǹkan oṣù mọ́ kó wá lóun fẹ́ ìyàwó mi òun ò ní súnmọ́. Àwọn èèyàn sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ dá sí i, mo sì máa pè wá wọlé pé jẹ́ kí n béèrè question yìí lọ́wọ́ bọ́dà Bashir Oyetunji tó jẹ́ international secretary. Afẹ́kíjọ kún sí aláwọn. Okay, Dr. Abdulgani. Okay. Yes, Bọ́dà Oyetunji Saheed, nínú ìjà Afẹ́kíjọ kún sí, àwọn ọkùnrin ń kú, wọ́n ń fẹ́ àwọn ìyàwó wọn lẹ̀, àfẹ́ wọn. Àwọn náà máa dìbà táwọn náà bá dúró ọdún kìíní, ọdún kejì tí ó sì retí, a lọ dáná láǹsàrùlá workshop, a lọ dáná láǹsàrùlá àwọn àǹsàrùlá yìí ò tiẹ̀ ní wo bẹ̀, a lọ kùdám workshop, a lọ kùdám ìtẹ̀ máa dáná àti ẹ̀ ní wo bẹ̀, a ṣáà fi wọ́n dáná náà ni. Ẹni ẹlẹ́ni dẹ̀ wò àwọ̀dún ẹ̀ náà máa di wá pé ń ta, ṣé kò ní lọ ni? Alẹ́ lomi divorce ni, ọkọ ẹ ti kọ́lẹ̀, ọkọ ẹ sọ pé kò dáa mọ́ ló bá kọ́lẹ̀. Ṣé èèyàn burúkú wá lòun ni? Òun dẹ̀ kọ́ ló jẹ̀bi, bó ti ẹ̀ jẹ̀bi ó ti ronú pìwàdà, gbogbo wa wá ń wò ó, ẹlòmíì a máa wá fílẹ̀, àwọn high rank person ló fẹ́ nujọ mọ́ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀, èmi ò lè tẹ́rí sí, èmi ò lè fẹ́ o, àwa fílẹ̀ náà máa di wá tó sẹ̀, àwa lọ tọmọtọmọ, ká ní diversity ẹni ọkọ àwa láyé, á lọ claim ọmọ padà. Tó bá jẹ́ widow àtòun àtàwọn ọmọ tí Amadi àfilẹ̀ lákó lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ náà Amadi láti lọ fẹ́, a máa tún kọ́ àwọn yẹn kú ònú ìjọ. Kí ni committee Rishanata ń ṣe sí fífẹ́ widow àti divorce? Torí mo rí pé tá bá ní ká wò ó, àwọn èèyàn méjì ló ní problem nu jọmọ́ o. Aláwọn ọmọ kéékèèké tán ọ̀rọ̀ kan fẹ́, aláwọn divorce àti widow tán ọ̀rọ̀ kan fẹ́. nígbà tẹ́mi wà ń kúdàm mo pin bẹ́ẹ̀ mi ò mọ̀ bí mo ṣe fẹ́ pin bẹ́ẹ̀ nísìn ibo yẹ káwọn kúdàm kọ́ máa fẹ́ àwọn ọmọ kéékèèké tí ò rí ọkọ fẹ́ kí àwọn ànsárùlà wa máa fẹ́ àwọn divorcee àti widow tí wọn ò lọ́kọ tí wọ́n bá tẹ́mi náà ti wá dá ànsárùlà àbáyé mo wá òbí abòtí ẹ̀ lè yí padà.
àti mi ò ti sára lájúná ṣe pé káwọn ànsárùlà máa ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀.
so a ti wò pé bóyá káwọn ànsárùlà kọ́ máa fẹ́ widow àti divorcee tó wà ńlẹ̀ torí àwọn lọ́jọ́ orí wọn ṣe ló tiẹ̀ súnmọ́ra wọn díẹ̀ ó ṣe pẹ̀kípẹ̀kí kí àwọn kùdàm káwọn máa fẹ́ àwọn ọmọ wa obìnrin tí wọ́n ti máa rí tí wọ́n rọ́kọ fẹ́ kí ni ètò tí Ṣàràtà committee ń ṣe fún àwọn divorcee àti widow láàrin wa.
Asa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Sai, kí n tó dáhùn the first question, mi wà comfortable pẹ̀lú first question tí Naima mi serve down. Ẹ má bínú. Ìdí tí mi fẹ́ yìí nítorí pé ọ́fíìsì mi ni so mi wà òkè dáadáa pẹ̀lú question yẹn. Nítorí pé Ànábì wa Muhammad sallam ó ní téèyàn bá ń báyàwó ẹ̀ lájọṣepọ̀ bí ẹ tó yan náfìlà ni. Iṣẹ́ eré náà ni ká máa báyàwó wa lájọṣepọ̀. Ànábì sọ wípé ẹnìkan wá bèèrè lọ́wọ́ Ànábì pé báwo ló ṣe jẹ́ iṣẹ́ eré. Ànábì ní téèyàn bá ṣe ṣìnà ṣé jìyà ń bẹ fún àbí ò sí jìyà fún. Wọ́n ní jìyà wà fún, wọ́n ní gbogbo tó bá ti ní jìyà ló ní ládàá. So kéèyàn máa báyàwó ẹ̀ lájọṣepọ̀ dáadáa ni. Ní tó máa wá ń fà tọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ òfin lè ṣe dáadáa tó bá ti ń wọ 50 mọ́ ni wípé àwọn oníyàwó kan wọ́n á ti súra wọn. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn ti máa ń súra wọn tó bá máa wọ 50 years èèyàn jọ wà ń lé títí. So tẹ́ bá wò ìdílé polygamy ò lè má ní sex láàrin ọ̀sẹ̀ kan kò sọgbọ́n tó fẹ́ dá oníyàwó kan lè má ní sex gsr àbílẹ̀ jẹ́lẹ̀ rí mi torí àwọn náà ti jọ polygamy. But àwọn tó bá jẹ́lẹ̀ yọkọ wọ́n máa ń súra wọn ọ̀sẹ̀ kan gbà míì wọn ò ní súnmọ́ra wọn. Nítorí jẹ́ kí n sọ lé ní pé lájínà kan wá bá mi jọ kan ó wá fẹjọ́ ọkọ ẹ̀sùn mi. So ìgbà tó fẹjọ́ ọkọ ẹ̀sùn mi so mo bọ́kọ sọ̀rọ̀ ọlọ́mọ ìṣẹ̀lẹ́rìí tí mo sọ èmi lọ́kọ́ kọ́wọ́ fún tí mo ra mọ́tò fún obìnrin yẹn mo wá gbé mọ́tò fúnjọ́ mo wá gbé mọ́tò fún obìnrin yẹn wá ń sọ fún mi pé ọkọ wọn mà gbádùn ni ó ní ògbóní ò gbádùn ni ṣùgbà tó sọ tọkọ ẹ̀ tó dé ó tún rìpítì ẹ̀ lójú ọkọ ẹ̀ ara wá ń tì mí wá sọ fún màá pé tí ọkọ ẹ̀ ṣe yìí èmi tí mo jẹ́ ríṣà àtàgùn òṣè fún ìyàwó mi pé kí n ra odidi mọ́tò pé mi ì tí lágbára ti ṣe ó ní kí n má dá lóhùn mọ́ tóun ṣe. Later on obìnrin yẹn wá pè mí pé for almost 6 months nígbà mi ò lè má fọ ọkàn òun ó lóun wá rò wípé ó ti dàgbà because of 15 years jòun lọ ó níjọ́ kan ni òun wá rí àwọn kọlù tán so later on ọlọ́run mọ̀ bí tó ti ṣàṣemáṣe ó wá tẹ fóònù ló wá gbọ́ ríngì tónú obìnrin mi so ńgbà mo wá sọ fún ọkùnrin tí mo wá pè ọkùnrin wá ní lóòótọ́ ní para wọn ò lè sí mọ́ wọ́n ní tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní wípé ní tí kì í sábà ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣẹ́rí tẹ́ bá ti jọ wà pẹ̀lẹ́ nìkan obìnrin àtọkùnrin kan láti bóyá age of 30 tẹ́ ti jọ wọ bóyá bí 60 ẹ ti máa dì kankan náà tẹ́ bá gbé obìnrin yẹn the same obìnrin yẹn kò bí tẹ́ wà yẹn tẹ́ bá lọ sí Sheraton hotel tó náà wọ miniskirt ẹ̀rí para yín máa move sí so n tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní pé n tó ń fà á tí wọ́n fi ń rò wípé wọ́n àbándọ̀ àwọn ìyálé tó yẹ kí tàbíyà secretary ṣe ni wípé kí wọ́n bá àwọn obìnrin sọ̀rọ̀ kí wọ́n máa múra dáadáa kí wọ́n máa fi pákéjì sí nígbà tẹ́nìkan bá wà tó jẹ́ wípé nígbà tọkọ ẹ̀fẹ́ bá alájọṣepọ̀ ó kàn sùn ni pẹ̀lú ẹni tó jẹ́ wọn á ná ẹlòmíì jẹ̀fọ́ ẹlòmíì ò jẹ̀fọ́ ẹlòmíì dẹ̀ dé ọ̀dọ̀ ẹlòmíì nítorí jẹ́pọ̀ àgbàlagbà ló jẹ́ kí máa sọ tí mo ń sọ yìí ẹ má bínú o ẹlòmíì dẹ́ dọ́dẹ̀ má fojú onírànú wò mí o ẹlòmíì dọ́dọ̀ ẹlòmíì yẹn kó tó bẹ̀ sí bá ṣeré lásán ní kíntòn lásán gbogbo inú ilé ti dàrú ẹjọ́ tálọ́kọ ọkùnrin máa fà sí so àwọn nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ táwọn Ọlájínà mọ̀ tó yẹ kí wọ́n bá àwọn Ọlájínà sọ nìyẹn láti fúnra wọn ní pákéjì tí ò ní jẹ́ kọ́kọ́ wọn wò ta ṣáwárí tóbìnrin bá wá ní pákéjì tí ìyàlé ní pákéjì ẹ̀mí ọkùnrin máa gùn Ànábì Muhammad sallam wọ́n ní ojú tó bá rí dáadáa ò ní fọ́ nínú dáadáa tó dẹ̀ ń bẹ láyé obìnrin jẹ́ kan ní wọ́n sọ àwọn ẹ̀kọ́.
jazakumullah khairan ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn òun ni pé báyìí lábẹ́ àmì ìkejì tí mo bí wọn ṣùgbọ́n lára bí a ń di ìkejì tí mo bí wọ́n ni pé kí ìṣàtà kọmitì ń ṣe ṣe rí ètò tá à ń ṣe pọ̀ ní ìṣàtà kọmitì adẹ̀jíwẹ́ káwọn obìnrin mọ̀ wípé àwa gan ti rẹ́dì láti máa líǹkì wọn ọ̀ pẹ̀lú àwọn ọkùnrin tí wọ́n ń wá ìyàwó aláwọn wídó wà ní ọkùnrin náà adẹ̀ láwọn divorce sínú ọkùnrin náà adẹ̀ láwọn tó fẹ́ ní ìyàwó kejì ṣùgbọ́n wàhálà tá a máa ń rí ni pé ọkùnrin máa ń tijú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn ò kì í jáde síta láti ọ̀sọ̀ pé àwọn wọ́kọ tó pẹ̀lú bí ìbá ti kú kọjá bá lọ bá pé àṣé òní rí màá rí ni ká lóun ò rí màá rí o bọ̀ nínú ọkùn ẹ̀ ó fẹ́ rí màá rí wọn béèrè lọ́wọ́ yàn pé tẹ bá gbóúnjẹ lẹ̀ pé ṣé ó máa jẹun ẹni tó bá ní tìgbà kó òun ò jẹun tó fẹ́ kó jẹun wà ní oúnjẹ yín rè ni o àbí oúnjẹ yín rè á jẹ gbogbo oúnjẹ lórí ṣé ó máa jẹ tí wọn bá ní tìgbà lóun ò jẹ torí ó fẹ́ kó jẹ ni ẹ bá lọ béèrè lọ́wọ́ obìnrin pé ẹ ṣé ó máa rí màá rí á lóun ò rí màá rí ni wọ́n ti bá lọ bá yẹ pé àwọn fa a mọ̀ pé jẹ́ ká máa fẹ́ ẹ̀ náà mo dẹ̀ láìkì ẹ̀ ẹ̀ bá fẹ́ gbọ́ á lóun á lọ rówó ṣe ẹ̀ mọ̀ pá kóòṣì yẹn yàtọ̀ sí ara wọn tàà náà rí pé a ti ṣe Google form kan nísìn támìrì bá ti approve ẹ̀ àwọn tó bá ń wọ́kọ̀ ní ìjọ mọ́ta àwọn tó ń wáyàwó wọ́n lè fi fọ́ọ̀mù ayẹ́ká get details wọn a máa lè link wọn up appropriately táwọn ètò yẹn bá ti ṣe dáadáa a máa jẹ́ ká mọ̀ kí n tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ń béèrè lọ́wọ́ àwọn èèyàn ó kí n gba àwọn èèyàn láyè láti béèrè òun ni pé ìkọ́jà látẹ̀sẹ̀ kí ti sọ yẹn ó fẹ́ correct díẹ̀ o ṣe lẹ́yìn wípé tí wọ́n bá tiẹ̀ ní ìyàwó méjì mẹ́ta wípé mind yẹn a máa change ṣe ráwọn ìyálé yẹn gan tó bá ti ní competitor wọn kì í fẹ́ gbà kò tí ì yé yín tó bá ti ní competitor wọn kì í fẹ́ gbà ó ò lè lọ yàrá ìyàwó kó o lọ ṣe nǹkan kó wá dé yàrá ẹ̀ lọ́jọ́ tó rún kọ̀ọ̀kọ̀ ló fẹ́ sùn ó mú yòó lè ṣe sùn níbi tó ti ń jẹun kan ló ti máa mọ̀ pé oúnjẹ tí mò ń jẹ lálẹ́ máa ṣiṣẹ́ wà á ti mọ̀ ipò oúnjẹ alẹ́ yìí o tí mò ń jẹ yìí o oúnjẹ ṣẹ́ ni àwọn pákéjì tóun náà dẹ̀ máa gbé wá ẹ máa mọ̀ pé ó fà ìjú bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe rò tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ lọ dọ̀wọ̀ ló bí ìyọ́ kẹrẹ mú ọ̀pá máa dọ̀wọ̀ jọ̀gàn kò ṣe é fẹnu ṣàlàyé àfi tá a bá dọ̀wọ̀ fúnra wa tó mo kí lẹ́yìn ní ẹ̀kọ́dà Oyètúnjí wọ́n náà túbọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí lọ́wọ́ sáà. Yes, what we have said in Yoruba, but Yetunde answered 2 questions. One of the questions is that he doesn't believe that the fact that people, if he believes that the fact that people are together in the home for long might also reduce their sexual urge. They've gotten used to each other, they've gotten to know each other, that the sexual urge might get reduced. But when polygamy sets in, and the husband can also get something else somewhere, and the wife at home too can also see that she need to repackage herself for the husband to also look towards her side. That might actually ginger the man up and improve the sexual communication in the house. And for that reason, one can actually even take a second wife, and the sexual urge within the family can actually increase. I also added that the fact that the first wife knows that you are now rotating where you sleep, she doesn't want you to come and sleep in her own room. If you go and walk over there, you cannot come and sleep here. So if you walk there, you must also walk here. So she will give you good food. She will also repackage herself, and we can see the beauty that we have not seen in her before in her. I always tell people, when MTN first came, we thought MTN is the only network that is good. They were selling SIM very expensive. They were selling phones very expensive. But later Glo came, Airtel came, and the customers are benefiting. We see that all those networks are good, and everybody is competing to give good service to their customer. That might also happen in polygamy, when wives will be competing reasonably to make their husband happy, and the husband will be happy eventually. I also added on the second question that each other community is actually working on the widow and divorcee. There are times it might not be easy for the widow and divorcee to come out that they need husband. And the way our family also present it, how long ago did your husband die that you want to remarry? Are you even the one who killed the husband? They might feel shy, but we are trying to look at designing a Google form now, which we have designed. We are waiting amidst approval. If it is approved, through that form, people can actually register. Those who need wife or husband can actually fill the form to register their interest, and through that form, we can actually link people together. And that we are not forgetting the divorcee and the widow in the Java, because if we don't marry them, they can go outside to marry other people and even go out with our children, and that will be a cause for lost violence. So the Asaola should be ready to do jihad in this direction, by marrying widow and divorcee among us. If somebody die in our Jamaat, we should make sure that after 1 year or thereabout, 4 months, 10 days is Islamic injunction. But thereafter, we should be looking for someone among us to marry the woman, either from within or from outside. Doing that, we'll be able to preserve the woman in the Jamaat and also be able to preserve the children within the Jamaat. Those are the things that we discuss. Àwọn kan ti kù sí mi létí pé àwọn fẹ́ ṣe ìbéèrè o àwọn fẹ́ ṣe contribution àìsèfẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ni mo dá ìpójú ọjọ́ yẹn ti ń ṣe bákanbákan torí àti ẹ̀ tí ì sọ nǹkan kan nínú àwọn nǹkan tí mo kó lẹ̀ bí àìsèfẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ ni. Ṣé ìkọlá sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ fún ìṣẹ́jú kan àbí ìṣẹ́jú méjì ìṣẹ́jú ìkọlá máa sọ̀rọ̀ gan o but máa wo time fún wọn ni o ìṣẹ́jú méjì ni mo fẹ́ fún Ṣàyẹ̀ Oyèkọ́lá káwọn ọ̀rẹ́ sáré bá wa dá sí ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà nílẹ̀.
Jazakumullah, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is a very important discussion, and keeping in mind that we just have a national one. Jazakumullah Sarasa for bringing this session up. I wish to call our attention with utmost respect and humility that having a wife comes with responsibility so huge. Having more than one wife too, all of us will know, and Islam also says it, that it comes with huge responsibility. But that is not discouraging us, for those of us who are capable of doing it. But then, I wish to add that Islam has solution and has profound solution to various challenges of human nature. Islam itself is called Al-Fitra in Holy Quran. It is a religion that is based on human nature. Our spiritual growth has 3 facets. The lowest one, the middle one, and the upper one. Nafsul Amara, Lawama, and Mutmainna. We just heard from respected Amir in the previous session that no Ahmadi is allowed to declare another Ahmadi a non-Ahmadi. So many things people will be observing that this man, what this man is doing, it does not behove an Ahmadi to do it. What if his marital life is what is causing him problem, and he's having this challenge that his single wife cannot solve for him? Does Islam have solution to his problem? Yes, it has. Having more than one wife is the solution. He just mentioned as Khalifatul Masih the second. As Khalifatul Masih, the Holy Prophet also says that if a man is out and he sees something in a female or opposite sex that attracts him, he should run back home. That the man should run back home instead of getting himself trapped in shaitan. He should run back home. Meaning that Islam provides solution to anything that relates with intimacy between a man and a woman. And having more than one wife is one of the solutions to it. These facts, we need to establish it. But, like Alhaji Shitu said, everything we do should take us to the highest level and pinnacle of righteousness. If we have a wife, whatever we do it should be towards righteousness. Having 2, 3 wives should take us towards righteousness. Even if we go into intimacy day in, day out with our wives, it should be to protect each other from infidelity, and that is righteousness. Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah khairan. Ṣàyẹ̀ Kọ́lá kan jẹ́ kó yé wa ní pé ká fẹ́yàwó méjì mẹ́ta ló máa tán ṣòro ẹlòmíì. Ipe wà tẹ́lòmíì gan wù táwọn èèyàn fi ṣàmàdí àní pé ó ṣe ṣìnà wọn kò sọ́dá rẹ̀ ní mo tó fẹ́ sọ nìyẹn. Ó lọ ń dàgbòrò rú. Wọ́n wá rò pé sáwọn tó da màdí gbọ́n náà ló ń dàgbòrò rú yìí. Wọ́n wá rò pé irú ẹni yẹn fẹ́ pé yàwó méjì ló máa fẹ́ tó máa kọ́ ọ̀bẹ kúrò nínú ìwà burúkú tó wù yẹn tí òfin ní sọjọ́ náà lẹ́nu mọ́ ó yẹ kí irú ẹni bẹ́ẹ̀ fẹ́ kó lè kọ ìwà burúkú yẹn lẹ̀. Wọ́n tún wá fi yé wáyé pé ada Khalifatul Masih the second lọ́ọ̀lùmọ̀ ọ̀la wọ́n fi yé wáyé pé no àdúrà sọ́nà sọ fún wa pé tí wọ́n bá jáde lọ tó bá rí nǹkan níta tí ó fẹ́ da ọmọ ẹ̀rú olóró-bìnrin ojú ẹ̀ wá fẹ́ wọ̀ kó sá lọ lé kó má dáná síta kó lọ ṣe nǹkan tó yẹ kó ṣe lé kó bá ládá torí pé à fún ọkùnrin nígbà láàyè for no reason àbóbìnrin náà mo lọ dáràn síta ẹ̀dá kò lágbára lọ́tọ̀ ẹ̀sọ́ wa kí ìfẹ́ sọ nǹkan kan iṣẹ́ tó kàn máa fún lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ẹ̀sọ́ wa sáyé.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to stress and I want to state that nature has provided us with solutions. Sex is an important aspect in marriage, and everybody wants to explore because most of the time people only know one way to do sex, but these days there are many styles, and some people who have been exposed who know and want to try, and because of the shyness, women don't want to show. So when the man knows that he needs more than he's being given, he will look outwards. Like somebody said, women have menopause, men too have menopause. There's always a time when you are good, there's always a time when you fall. It's both sides, not only for women. Again, we must respond to the fact that population, women these days only want to have 2 children. And if you meet a man who wants 4 children, what do? You have to do matna. So we just need to be, communication is very important in marriage, and that is what a lot of people don't understand. If you explain to your wife, if there is no communication, if your wife, you are not satisfying her, let her be free to talk to you. And if you are not satisfying your wife, there must be communication, because of this lack of communication, we go into conflict. And so we must learn to understand each other. What do you want? What more can I give? But we must realize that sex and children are always something that drives us to have more wives. So please, let us continue to be interactive and communicate well so that we can have a happy home. Salaam alaikum. And those of us who are still looking for wives, we always overlook them and say they're not serious. We are not seriously working to bring those who need wives and those who need husbands. So we must work hard to make sure that those who are in need should get it. Otherwise, that's why people are drifting out. So please, let's try and love one another more than we are doing now. Salaam alaikum.
Nǹkan tí àwọn bàbá sọ fún wa ní pé ó yẹ ká mọ̀ pé kọ́kùnrin àti obìnrin ní àjọṣepọ̀ ó tún ní àwọn ọgbọ́n míì tá a lè dá sí tá a fi yàtọ̀ sí pé a jọ ń gbélé fúngbà tó pẹ́ ipò oríṣiríṣi àwọn ọ̀nà ló wà ní ìsìn tí ò ní dàbí kí bàbá kan sùn sẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ kí ìyá sùn sẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ wọn ni a lè rí wọn fún àwọn ọmọ ìṣẹ̀fọ́ àwọn àgbàlagbà ló mọ̀ àwọn ọmọ kéékèèké báyìí ó mọ̀ a lè rí wọn fún àwọn ọgbọ́n yẹn wọ́n tá a bá tún dá àwọn ọgbọ́n yẹn á jẹ́ kí ilé wa kó tún tò sí wọ́n wá fi yé wa yí pé tí torí ọmọ àbí torí ìbálòpọ̀ ó lè fẹ́ kí ọkùnrin fẹ́ yàwó mi pé kan tó ṣe pàtàkì ni pé a gbọ́dọ̀ ní ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ àgbọ́yé láàrin àwa àtìyàwó wa kájọ sọ kájọ wò sọ́tún kájọ wò sósì ká tó dàgbà lé irú ìgbésẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n lè ti díjọ́ mọ́ ní ọdún pé ṣáàtà kọmitì nìyẹn bá wí bọ́dà bàṣírí sà wọ́n díjọ́ mọ́ náà rí pé a ní deliberate action láti rí pé àwọn ọkùnrin tó ń wáyàwó àtàwọn obìnrin tó ń wáyàwó à ń líkì wọn ọ̀ kí kìíní yẹn lè rọrùn fún wa láti ṣe wọ́n ní lọ́dẹ̀ máa fi parí ẹ̀ ní pé mo máa rọ àwọn ọkùnrin pé wọ́n lọ́kùnrin náà ní menopause ọkùnrin náà tó bá yá ó máa rẹ̀ wọ́n kò tó máa ń da fọ́kùnrin àtobìnrin ni pé nígbà tí ò tí ì rẹ̀ wá ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe dáadáa kán lè mọ̀ pé nígbà ayé wa àtúrà ìjẹ́ ìjọba wo fún bọ́ọ̀ ní ìsòkòṣà ò lè gba bọ́ọ̀mù wọn wá bá àláyé òkòṣà ó gbá bọ̀ láyé kánú àwọn kan wọn lè sọ pé láyé wọn so nígbà tí a sì dúró dáadáa ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe dáadáa fún àwọn ìyàwó náà máa sọ pé àwọn báyìí lẹ́ni tá ìsẹ̀lísì ìyá lè jẹ́ kọ́ dúró tì wá dáadáa ẹ̀dá kùnrin akẹ́rà àwọn ọmọ jìfẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ sí bàbá náà bí máa pe bàbá yóò sàlám sàyè máa ṣì dọ̀rọ̀ bàbá ti náwó lẹ́yìn ẹ máa bọ̀ sà ẹ máa bọ̀ dẹ́ẹ̀ sẹ́la wọ́n ti náwó látàárọ̀ ẹ máa bọ̀ when you get okay you can come sir sorry sir you can come forward no not zero that baba after baba paiwa sir come sir kindly come sir yes sir. Sorry, I did not know you did not understand Yoruba. You want to make contribution, sir? You want to ask a question? You can do that, sir. Come and face the camera, sir, so that it can be captured. You can go ahead with your questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, my name is Abdul Karim. I'm from Awichi Jamaat. I have a question concerning divorce. I saw there's one man is a chief imam of Matam. He married 5 wives. People are now against him, that is. Marry 5 wives. Yes. The people are now against him. The same person when marry 5 wives, if he pray, God know the answer in prayer. And there is no feeling people for prayer. So they have to remove him from imam. Then in a divorce one. That's the question I want to ask.
What Baba asks is that there is a particular imam who marries 4 wives, 5 wives, and because people say it is against Islam, God will not answer his prayer, they remove him from the imamship and he has to divorce 1 wife. Without wasting time, the imam will still talk, but will say that under Islamic doctrine, we cannot marry more than 4 at a time. The fact that I want to marry 5 should also not be a condition to divorce 1. Allah sees our heart. If because you want to marry 5, we now want to divorce 1, Allah sees us. So we cannot marry more than 4 at a go. But we can also not say that because I want to marry another one, you will now punish the one you have already married and divorce 1 without a genuine reason or a particular reason. So why marry multiple wives? We should put the fear of Allah into perception. So the answer is we cannot marry more than 4. And we cannot, because we want to marry the 5th one, now punish one by divorcing her. It's wrong. So the best is when we get to 4, tí nǹkan mẹ́rin ò bá tóyàn, nǹkan ò lè tóyàn mọ́. If 4 wives cannot satisfy a man, then that man is in trouble. Even if he marries 5, it will still not satisfy him. So at 4, we can rest and we cannot proceed to marry the 5th one, except if one dies. Or we have a genuine reason to actually divorce one, and we divorce that person, and we can now take another one to replace the person. What I will do to make it faster is to be taking the mic. Can I do that? Can I be taking mic to people? I can be taking mic to the... I shouldn't. Oh yeah, come sir. I thought you'd be wasting our time. You can come, sir. I've called 2 people from the central. I will call 2 people from here, 2 people from here. The Spirit will direct us.
The theme of our workshop is growing the Jamaat. Divorce is not our problem. In the early 70s, we were going towards the right path. And when the 3rd Khalifa came to Nigeria, may Allah be pleased with him, he met us with the condition we are. And he said, if you should continue this, your future is very bright. And what is that condition? That is what necessitated starting the IVC, the Islamic Vacation Course, in 1976. The generation we are tackling today, they are old generations. Only very few people marry because they are Ahmadi. Most of us here, we are non-Ahmadi before the husband gets converted. The wives, who happens to be the mother of our children, just manage without understanding the faith. They just manage to follow us to practice Ahmadiyya. And when you now insist that your daughter or your son should marry from Ahmadi, the mother inculcated in the children that your baba evetun tie bonu kini. When you get your new or someone that suits you, you propose it. The house is never together. Maybe with you, because you marry when the Jamaat has grown. But we have not grown in faith. We just have men who are trying. But the women, they are only vying among themselves. So in that wise, my observation is that the growth of the Jamaat cannot just be mentioned on the lip services. Why should our sons not marry our daughters? Why? That is the issue.
What Pa Absalam Sahib told us is that we need to go back to the basis, and the basis is that when many of the older generation, when they got married, their mothers, they have gotten married before they became Yorùbá ni mo fẹ́ sọ, mo fẹ́ tún nǹkan tó sọ ní ẹ má bínú. Ẹ̀kọ́ tí Pàrọ̀ Sọ̀lám Sahib sọ fún wa ní pé nígbà tí àwọn àgbàlagbà inú ìjọ táwọn ti ṣe ìgbéyàwó ńgbà yẹn ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn ni ò tí ì dá Ahmadiyya. Nígbà tí wọ́n dẹ̀ gba Ahmadiyya, àwọn ìyàwó wọn Ahmadiyya ò yí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀, wọ́n kàn gba Ahmadiyya yẹn pẹ̀lú àwọn ọkọ wọn tó bá àwọn ọkọ wọn ti dá Ahmadiyya ni. Nígbà tí bàbá wa ń tiraka láti fa ọmọ ẹ sórí ọ̀nà jọ̀mọ́, àwọn ìyá tí ò gbọ́yé wọn ò mú lọ́kùn dúdùn, òun ló jẹ́ kí ọmọ mi lọ fẹ́ yàwó ń ta, kọmọ mi lọ fọkàn ń ta. Ìgbà yín láti padà sí ẹsẹ̀ àárọ̀ nígbà tí a máa mú ẹ̀kọ́ ní ọ̀kú dúdùn tá a máa kọ́ àwọn ọkùnrin máa ṣe ń kọ́ wa ẹ̀ ní pàápàá tó fi yẹ kí ọkùnrin kó fẹ́ ìyàwó nínú jọ̀mọ́, tá a tún máa kọ́ àwọn obìnrin náà ní pàápàá tó fi jẹ́ kí ó yẹ kọ́ ọmọ obìnrin kó fẹ́ ọkọ nínú jọ̀mọ́. Wọ́n rán wa létí pé a máa ń ṣe IVC ńgbà yẹn tá a ti máa ń kọ́ àwọn ọmọ wa ní ẹ̀kọ́ àti ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́, ó yẹ ká padà sí IVC yẹn. Mo rántí bó dẹ̀ pé àwọn kùdámù ṣì ń ṣe IVC fún àwọn àtúfàl, ó dẹ̀ pé àwọn lágínà náà dẹ̀ wọ́n ń ṣe, ó kọ̀ yẹ pé wọn ò ṣe pọ̀ bó ṣe máa ń ṣe ní ayé ọjọ́ yẹn ni wọ́n ń ṣe lọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ nígbà àwọn àgbàlagbà àjọ ń gbọ́. Mi ò bẹ́ẹ̀ àkọ́tí bàbá yóò dátà láti sọ ni pé bí akọ máa ṣe pọ̀, èmi ò sọ pọ̀ sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ o, bò mo rò kó má yẹ pé nǹkan tó ń sọ nìyẹn, wọ́n ní nǹkan táwọn ń sọ nìyẹn. So àwọn àgbàlagbà wọ́n á wò ó nǹkan tí wọ́n sọ yẹn torí àwọn ọ̀nà ìbàmì rẹ̀ wà ń bí, wọ́n á dẹ̀ gbé yẹ̀wò pẹ̀lú àwọn àgbààgbà níṣà àta kọ̀mítì. Ẹ ṣe afẹ́ sì béèrè, ẹ jẹ́ kí n wo ẹ̀gbẹ́ ń bí. Dókítà ò ní náwó, tí má ti rí dókítà ọkàn mi máa ń fà sí, ṣùgbọ́n mi mọ̀ bí a máa tiẹ̀ pè wọ́n. Dókítà Díkò náà tún wà ń bí. Dókítà mi ò lè máa pa àwọn dókítà, báwo la ṣe máa ṣe báyìí o. Ẹ ká pé CP Kòròdú, CP Owódé, bọ̀ ìṣẹ́jú kọ̀ọ̀kan la máa lò, a máa kọ́ àwọn ìbéèrè yẹn pọ̀ ni, àti CP Ọ̀yọ́ àbí.
Assalamu alaikum. Orúkọ mi ni Abdulkabir Yekini. Inú mi dùn wípé irú session yìí wáyé. Àwọn tó ṣe wípé wọ́n ti wà divide of pé wọ́n fẹ́ divorce ara wọn, àti bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ nílé, àti bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ ní circuit, wọ́n ti wá sí headquarters, wọ́n fún wa ní fake agreement wípé àwọn máa ṣẹ̀tọ́, wọ́n wá délé, ọkọ wá àbádàn ìyàwó, kò wá ṣojúṣe mọ́, à ń pè à ń bá sọ̀rọ̀ at a stage mo ń láti ní kí president kó pe the national regional secretary láti sọ fún wọn irú àwọn ọkùnrin tí wọ́n níwà yìí kí ni Islamic committee àti regional committee lè ṣe fún wọn to curb this kind of attitude. Torí pé àkọ́kọ́ má fẹ́ yàwó nígbà tọ́rọ̀ ìyàwó dẹ̀ ti wọlé, ilé gbọ́dọ̀ máa tò lágbọ́dọ̀ rí, kí wá ṣe pé kí ọkùnrin wá japan lè kó má tiẹ̀ gbọ́rọ̀ sí bàbá àti ìyá lẹ́nu mọ́ kó máa sá fún everybody. Then the second aspect, bí Rich Janata bí wọ́n ṣe máa bá wa bá àwọn lájúná sọ̀rọ̀, torí with my own experience lọ́dọ̀ tiwa ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọgbà ni mo máa ń sọ fún àwọn obìnrin yẹn pé má fẹ́ yàwó kì í ṣe nǹkan tó lágbára lé lórí. Lára àwọn nǹkan tí o máa ṣe ni pé ẹ máa gbàdúrà pé nǹkan tí mi lágbára àti yí padà kọ́lọ́ fún mi lókun àti gbàmọ́ra, n tí mo lágbára àti yí padà kọ́lọ́ fún mi lẹ́mìí àti yí padà àti ìyàtọ̀ láàrin méjèèjì. Kí ẹ máa bá wa indoctrinate àwọn obìnrin yìí, kẹ máa bá wa bá wọn sọ irú àwọn nǹkan báyìí. For instance, the last time ta nírú session yìí lọ́dọ̀ wa Mọ́fí Absamad, wọ́n wá mú àwọn ẹ̀là kan wá wípé bóyá ìfẹ́ tara nìkan ni obìnrin fi máa ń bá ọkọ ẹ̀ jà pé kò ṣẹ̀tọ́. Nígbà tí kan náà lájúná ẹ máa dáhùn during the interactive session, ẹ wá ṣé máa fún sáà nìkan làwọn máa kà fúnra wa lé ní gbogbo àwọn tó kù kàn fi gbé táyé, you know that kind of a thing. So àwọn afọgbọ́n pè padà.
Àjọ̀dákùnmùlà ọ̀háìràn máa pe ìbéèrè wọn méjì ni a máa dá àwọn ẹ̀kọ́. Ìbéèrè alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ ni wípé ọ̀rọ̀ divorce wọ́n láwọn ọkùnrin ní ìlàjì bí wọ́n á bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ tó bá tún sign agreement gan wọn ò ní dúró tí wọ́n kọ́ àbàdàn ìyàwó wọn ní a máa sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ẹ̀. ẹlẹ́gẹ̀ẹ́jì tí wọ́n fèrè òun ni ọ̀rọ̀ ká máa bá wọn lágbára náà sọ̀rọ̀ pàápàá lórí ìyàwó kejì àbàdàn yẹn náà. dókítà oníṣàyè ẹ kì í ṣe bàṣà ẹ fẹ́ onídàbí ó yá máa fi ń ṣe ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì tó dọ́tò ní ìyàwó bíi mẹ́ta ni wọ́n ní àwọn.
ok assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mo kàn fẹ́ fà láti àkíyèsí wá sí àwọn ẹjọ́ tí nowadays because of social media and so many people know tí a bá máa lo church of words wa polygamy using polygyny because ladies are now saying that okay if Islam allow polygamy that means they are also free to marry more than one husband. So please let us be resisting ourselves in particular. The second one I want to say is the issue the one Dr. Someone raised, the issue of looking for baby boy, a baby male child or female child. Nowadays, technology has so much advanced that you can really determine the sex of your unborn baby. But I have been telling people, there are so many research on this that instead of because your wife is giving birth to female baby. This is the reason why you want to marry another wife. That is not a genuine reason anymore. You should try to move close to any medical doctor. They will explain to you how you can have your baby boy or baby girl easily with prayer. According to research, they said 50% of your effort can make you have a baby boy. And the result, another 50% is chance for prayer. So another thing, the third thing I want to call our attention to is you really mentioning the issue of social media. Not just ourselves being the Ahmadiyya Jamal Kilo. Most of our ladies are in social media. And if I mention social media that are handling this type of a case, we all, most of us have also come across of it, which is this thing on YouTube called TNT. And there's another one, a Muslim sister is handling it called 1x2. Before you say anything, your wife will come to you and say, Doctor, come and listen. Doctor, come and listen. My husband, come and listen. Please, we need to be very, very comfortable with all these things very well. That our women are at home, they are watching all these things that are going on social media. And we need also to be alert to be able to blend with them. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ní aláàjù béèrè méjì yẹn lọ bí àwọn kan náà ti mú béèrè wá àwọn kan sọmọ ará ìbẹ̀ ni èèyàn kan béèrè lórí lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ Dr. Saheed lẹ́yìn wọ́n dẹ̀ ní kéèyàn má lówó lọ́wọ́ wà lára challenges tó máa ń mú kí ilé dàrú tó dẹ̀ máa ń mú kéèyàn má lè rán nílé dáadáa bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ẹni láti máa gbàgbá sọ lọ́wọ́ ọba kó pèsè fún wa ni ọ̀dọ́ kan ni kéèyàn lówó gan nígbà pé kéèyàn ní ìwọ̀nba tá lè fi ṣe ìpèsè fún àwọn mọ̀lẹ́bí ẹ̀ ní pẹ́sìmọ̀ tí wọ́n béèrè gangan wọ́n sọ fún wa pé ọ̀rọ̀ jẹ́ kẹ́rí wọn tó lè rọ̀ wọ́n lọ́wọ́ ní ìjàmá ni pé ọkùnrin tó bá ti ń lo agídí tí kò yẹ kó kọ́ ìyàwó ẹ̀ tó kóun fẹ́ kọ́ ẹ ká bá sọ̀rọ̀ ká pè sákìyèsí tó bá sáìn agreement tí ó fò fílẹ̀ ẹ ká bá sọ̀rọ̀ ká pè sákìyèsí torí tá a bá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ a kàn máa fi ìyà jẹ àwọn obìnrin láàrin wa ni a máa bẹ̀rù ọkùnrin bẹ́ẹ̀ kàn máa pè sákìyèsí ni àdàbọ̀dọ̀ máa rìpọ́ọ̀tù fún yàtọ̀ committee at national level kọ́ lè pẹ̀lú ọkùnrin yẹn kọ́ lè bá sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn ọmọ ọkùnrin bá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ dáadáa gba gbọ́dọ̀ gbìyànjú kárí pé akọ́ irú àwọn ọkọ̀ báyẹn ká máa pa ọkùnrin yẹn sákìyèsí bọ́dọ̀ mọ̀ pé òun fẹ́ yáwó mọ́ dandan ni pé kó òun kọ̀.
The last question at the regional seminar, if anyone treats or maltreats his wife, that person should report his husband to the respected authority. After giving or guiding them and restrict to adhere strictly to the directive, such person should be punished with immediate effect.
Àti gbọ́ lẹ́nu sáraṣà wọ́n fi wáyé pé tí ó bá máa kí ìyàwó ẹ̀ láti bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ tí ò pẹ́ ká rìpọ́tù wọn sí àkọ́bí authority a rìpọ́tù wọn sí Zahim Allah Nordin Allah wọ́n lè lọ sájà a rìpọ́tù wọn sí South President Yama President jẹ́sàwọ̀ ẹ̀kọ́ máa lọ́tọ̀ bíṣà àtà kọ̀mpútà àtọ̀gbà mail lábá bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn sọ̀rọ̀ tí ò bá gbọ́ wọ́n fi ìyà tó tọ́ jẹ́ ẹ̀mẹ́ ìkára náà dẹ̀ kóra wá sínú wàhálà yẹn ẹlẹ́yìn tí wọ́n béèrè òun ní ọ̀rọ̀ second wife èmi lè fi gbogbo ẹni sọ wípé ẹjọ́ bá fẹ́ ìyàwó kejì ìyàwó ẹ̀kọ́ ló ní kó máa fẹ́ o ẹ̀mẹ́ ìka kúrọ́ máa wọ̀ òun mọ́ o èmi ti gbọ́ from reliable authority báwọn aláṣẹ lájínà wọ́n máa ń báwọn obìnrin wọn sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn lájínà sọ̀rọ̀ lórí pé wọ́n fìgbà láàyè lẹ fáwọn ọmọ láti fẹ́ ìyàwó mi ìmọ̀ tó bá báwọn sọ̀rọ̀ jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ́nà tí ẹ̀ bá make attempt tí ẹ̀ gbẹ̀ ní ọkọ̀ ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ ṣe wọ́n nígbà kẹṣẹ́ náà tàbá fẹ́ tú ẹran ọ̀nà ti wọ ẹran fún wa pé tàbá fẹ́ fi ọ̀rẹ́ sọ́nà láti dù kó gbà bọ̀ kí ẹ máa wá pé ìpè wá dúdú o kéyàwó akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ kọ́ mi lọ fẹ́ ìyàwó mi ni o tó bá bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ ọkọ̀ wọn ti ń rọ̀ èyí náà gbọ́dọ̀ make attempt lórí ìpèsè tọ́lọ́mọ̀ wáyé báwọn aláàjì ṣubú sàpè sọ fún wa lórí ká fẹ́ ṣe ìdíyà ká pè jókòó ká bá a sọ gbogbo àwọn ìgbà wàhálà tó wà lẹ́yìn ẹ̀ bóyá máa bá ń lé òun ni bóyá òní fi owó ni o ẹgbẹ́ lọ pé kò rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ká wà sùn fún ẹlẹ́sì ìyàwó kejì wa tó dábàá sí ìyàwó kejì àwọn lájú ní akọ́ o wọ́n bára wọn sọ̀rọ̀ bí obìnrin á ṣe bí obìnrin tó bá ní gómìnà náà máa fọkọ méjì àwọn náà nígbà o tó wọ́n bára wọn sọ̀rọ̀ ọlọ́run dẹ̀ tẹ̀ wọ́n nú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ tó tẹ̀ wọ́n nú yẹn ẹ̀yin náà gbé gbèsè láti fẹ́ ìyàwó lọ́tò ní wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ pẹ́sọ̀ lẹ́tọ̀ ìyàwó kọ̀ọ̀kan lórí àlàyé ìṣìkò níyàwó kan bọ́dá màṣí òfin lórí ìyàwó kan ilé ìkẹmọ ìyàwó tẹ́lẹ̀ ní ó dàgbé mi ní ìlẹ̀ ọkàn so àwọn tó níyàwó méjì pọ̀ àwọn tó níyàwó kan pọ̀ bàbá tẹ̀ máa ṣe náà wọ́n bá àwọn ìyàwó sọ aláwọ̀ àgbàlagbà tó níyàwó tó níyàwó kan náà àgbàlagbà wọ́n ṣe wọ́n bá àwọn ìyàwó sọ̀rọ̀ ní aláwọ̀ ọmọdé náà tó ṣe ìyàwó kejì kẹta tó ń bá àwọn ìyàwó sọ̀rọ̀ tọ́lẹ̀ ìgbọ́ tó jẹ́ kí nìmọ̀ ìgbà àwọn lájú náà òkú tó wà dé sọ àwọn agan náà ní kan ṣe wọ́n ní kókòkò kìíní kan ó mọ abẹ́rẹ́ báwọn ní máa sọ àwọn ẹ̀rọ ní máa kòwé ó fi àtijọ́ wa òun lẹ́nu bí ìṣe nínú wa káàkiri. Then àwọn dọ́kítọ̀ ní fi ya ẹ pé social media ti wà ń ta ní ìsìn tó ń pa obìnrin lóríṣiríṣi ẹ̀kọ́ ẹ̀ka náà mọ́ bá obìnrin wá sí dáhùn ẹ̀kọ́ kan yé kálẹ̀ gbìyànjú láti bá wọn lò láti fi wọn yí pé a nífẹ̀ẹ́ wọn ká máa communicate pẹ̀lú wọn kò dẹ̀ yẹ ká sọ pé afẹ́fẹ́ ìyàwó mi torí sex ọmọ bí afẹ́fẹ́ ọmọkùnrin afẹ́fẹ́ ọmọbìnrin tàbá súnmọ́ àwọn dókítà pẹ̀lú àdúrà a lè wò bẹ́ẹ̀ ká àtẹ́ǹtì àwọn ọkọ̀ tó máa ní kájá bí ọmọkùnrin lè yọ àwọn ọmọbìnrin lè yọ wọ́n dẹ̀ fi wáyé pé polygamy ọ̀nà tó kọ́ méjì ló túmọ̀ sí àìdá kí ọkùnrin fẹ́ ìyàwó méjì tàbí obìnrin fẹ́ ọkọ méjì the correct thing ní polygamy òun ni kí ọkùnrin fẹ́ ìyàwó méjì polyandry is also another form of polygamy nígbà tí obìnrin kan bá fẹ́ kú ọmọ ẹyọ kan lọ tí èdè ìsáàmù fọwọ́ sí ìtàlọ́nà máa sọ nípa rẹ̀ tó kọ́ ẹgbọ̀gbọ̀n ní polygamy wọ́n pe àkíyèsí wa sí ìyẹn then wọ́n tún fi yé wa nínú ìwé kan tọkọ síwájú wípé ká máa fi tàwọn obìnrin sí àwọn ọ̀pọ̀ tá à ń ṣe nígbà ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọkùnrin máa gbé wájú ní obìnrin lòún fẹ́fẹ́ ká máa ń nípa àwọn ọkùnrin náà agbọ́dọ̀ tí èrò káwọn náà máa jẹ́ wájú lóòótọ́ kò ní ọ̀fẹ́ níta ní ìfàdílítì ọmọ ọkùnrin ọ̀dọ́ ọkùnrin náà bá wà tútù tó wà déédéé tó ní olùtọ̀ wọ́n tí òṣèṣe kú ṣe wájú ìlú náà máa jẹ́ ká fi máa rì agbọ́dọ̀ máa ń fa sáì ìfàdílítì fún ọmọ obìnrin nìkan ká má kọ àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀kọ́ ọkùnrin wa ní ẹ̀kọ́ nígbà àwọn náà gbọ́dọ̀ máa dúró káwọn náà bẹ́ẹ̀ máa mọ obìnrin kí wọ́n tó máa rì wọ́n tó máa tẹ̀síwájú nígbà ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọkùnrin máa ń dáhùn pé ìyàwó òun ò lè ṣe déédéé mọ́ òní fẹ́fẹ́ ìyàwó mi ṣé gómìnà náà máa fọ́kọ̀ mi ti pọ̀ kò lè ṣe déédéé mọ́ tí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọkọ̀ ni òun ṣe déédéé náà tí àwọn ìbá fara tì í tó bá fara gbà bẹ́ẹ̀ ẹlòmíì ẹ̀kan lóṣù ló ń ṣe ẹlòmíì ẹ̀kan lọ́sẹ̀ ló ń ṣe tí ó lè tẹ̀lé àwọn ẹlọ́run ìyàwó ẹ̀rọ pè kí bá gba kámú tọ́nà la máa ṣe táwọn aṣọ ìpè torí báwọn ìyàwó wa wà lè ṣe dáadáa mọ́ afẹ́lẹ́ máa fẹ́ àwọn ìyàwó mi táwọn bàbá àwọn ìyàwó wa náà wọ́n bá wa náà wọ ara ló fáwọn kọ̀ọ̀kan ni ọlọ́kàn fi yé wa ní pé ká tó máa bá lọ́fẹ́ ìyàwó mi náà ẹ má ká máa yọ ìpín ká máa fi ìpín wọ́n báwo ni wọ́n sọ ká máa yọ pé ká tún máa fi owó ojú ẹ má ìka máa sọ pé wọ́n wí ìgbà ìfẹ́fẹ́ yàwó mi ẹ má ìka máa condemn wọn in marrying another wife ẹ ká máa rántí pé we are also weak and they are also giving us the necessary support so we can marry another wife but we should not lay it on the weakness of our wife even if they are weak we should support them whatever we can do to support them ní ìdí wọn sọ gbẹ̀yìn wọ́n ní kéèyàn fẹ́yàwó mẹ́rin márùn-ún kọ́ ló ní mẹ́ta mẹ́rin kọ́ ló ní kó wà discipline many people marry 3-4 wives and they are still not disciplined so what we should inculcate ourselves discipline and the fact that I want to do jihad to help the cause of Allah marry 2 wives 3 wives 4 wives be based on Islamic discipline even if you are not disciplined if you marry 4 we will still go out to do many things outside and lastly in rounding up people somebody said that second and third wife they usually have marital conflicts a lot and that even if one marries the daughter of a relation that are not well trained, it can still cause problem at home. What is important is that for our children now, we should be training them on polygamy or polygyny. Our male children, our female children, as they grow up, it should be topic of discussion. So that they look at the pros and cons as they are growing up. The females will always have it in their spirit that it's not permitted, and there are conditions in which Islam has permitted it, and it's the right of men. The men also growing up know that it's their right, but they must not use it to off their rights. And with this growing up, polygamy will be a better thing in the Jamaat in the future. They also say that when a married man is not gainfully employed, he's earning 20,000 naira per month. Is it advisable for him to marry a second wife, or can he marry a third wife? If you are not buoyant financially, you should not marry another wife. If you are not buoyant financially, except you want to marry a rich woman. If you want to marry a rich woman, then we can supply the intimacy she needs. She can supply the money that we need if she's ready to help us. But if it is not a rich woman that we want to marry, we should not marry if we know we are not financially well, so that we don't put our children and the wives into crisis. So those are the things that we have discussed. Torí àsìkò wa tó ti lọ, nílé sọ̀rọ̀ ju báyìí lọ, torí àtẹ̀tí ló bí ọ̀pọ̀ ìṣẹ́lú, kọjá àsìkò ni wọ́n fún wa, láti àbẹ̀lẹ̀ ní káràndọ̀. Wọ́n náà fi wa ní pé agbọ́dọ̀ ní pé àwọn akọ àwọn ìyàwó wa sílẹ̀. Tí èèyàn bá rí obìnrin tó nífẹ̀ẹ́ tó tó fẹ́, tó lè gba ọ̀nà ẹ̀kọ́ láti fẹ́, kó máa rántí ìfẹ́ tó ní sí nígbà tó ṣì ìpàdé ẹ̀ lọ́nà láti máa bá a lò lọ. Tó yẹ lọ́wọ́ máa fi sọ wọn láti bá mi máa kàwọ́ láti ìyàwó pé ká máa rántí ọlọ́wọ́ bá ta fún máa ń bẹ̀rẹ̀ wa. Ìgbà tó fẹ́ tó tó ṣẹ̀ ìjọ fẹ́ mi nítorí tọ́lọ́hùn. Nígbà tó bá ti dàgbà tó bá ti gbọ́ tó láṣẹ̀ wá, ẹ ká máa rántí pé a ti forúkọ Ọlọ́run bá bẹ̀ rí. Tóun náà bá forúkọ Ọlọ́run bá bẹ̀ wá pé ká gbàgbé ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tó ṣẹ̀ wá. Ẹ jẹ́ ká gbàgbé ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ náà ká má fi ìyà ẹ̀ jẹ. Ẹ gbogbo wa rí i pé ilé wa ò gbọdọ̀ dàrú. Ká rí i pé a nífẹ̀ẹ́ àwọn ìyàwó wa, káwọn ìyàwó náà nífẹ̀ẹ́ àwọn ọkọ wọn. Ká rí i pé ṣètò báwọn kan ṣẹ̀ ká dáríjì wọn. Tábà tiẹ̀ máa níyàwó kejì ìkẹta ìkẹrin. Ẹ má ẹ̀ka nítorí pé a fẹ́ fìyà jẹ ìyálé. Ẹ ká nítorí pé Islamic condition fẹ́ ká ní a dẹ̀ ní sexual reason míì láti ní. Tábà dẹ̀ wá fún àwọn ìyàwó kejì kẹta ìkẹrin náà, ẹ má ẹ̀ka àbàdàn àwọn tó wà nílẹ̀ ká fún wọn ní àwọn ẹ̀tọ́ wọn. Lẹ́yìn wá àgbà náà, ẹ ká tọ́ àwọn ọmọ wa dáadáa. Ká má ẹ̀ka àwọn ọmọ wa má kọ́ lọ márì ní ìta jọ̀mọ́, kọ́ má lọ márì ní agbo míì ta. Ẹ kí ọkọ ọmọ wa ọkùnrin kó fẹ́ ìyàwó nínú jọ̀mọ́, kọ́ ọmọ wa obìnrin náà kóun náà fẹ́ ọkọ nínú jọ̀mọ́. Ká lè máa tẹ̀síwájú sí i, ká dẹ̀ máa dẹ̀ lọ sókè sí i. Ẹ ká dẹ̀ train àwọn ọmọ wa in this direction, pọ́ gbọ́dọ̀ fẹ́ràn nínú jọ̀mọ́. Ká rí pé àwọn IVC wa dá padà, tàbí máa ká ọmọ wa lẹ́kọ̀ọ́, tàbí máa yẹ kó mọ àwọn nǹkan tó yẹ kí wọ́n mọ̀ nípa Islam, ká dẹ̀ kó mọ̀ nípa polygamy. Tá a bá ń ṣe eléyìí, á rí pé jọ̀mọ́ wa máa kún sí i, àwa náà dẹ̀ máa lọ òkè sí i. Mo dẹ̀ fẹ́ rọ àwọn bàbá, ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn bàbá ni ò jẹ́ káwọn ọmọ wa marry nígbà tó bá wà ní 18, 19, 20, wọ́n á ní kó parí school náà. Táwọn bá fẹ́ marry ní èjì tán tiẹ̀ kéré, tá a lè ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́ ẹ ká jẹ́ kó marry nílẹ̀ wọn lọ máa ṣe ìṣekúṣe. Táwọn ọmọ wa náà ìyá bàbá mi fẹ́ ìyàwó kejì ìyàwó kẹta, bọ̀ kò fẹ́ gbà kọ́ ọmọ tiẹ̀ lọ ṣe ìyàwó kejì àbí ìyàwó kẹta. Ó pọ̀ láàrin àwọn àṣàrùlà. Bàbá mi ò fẹ́ ìyàwó kejì kẹta o, bẹ́ẹ̀ jẹ́ ojú ni màálù rọ ọ̀bẹ ò dá lọ́rùn. Òun ò fẹ́ kọ́ ọmọ tòun lọ ṣe ìyàwó kejì àbí ìyàwó kẹta, bòun fẹ́ ìyàwó kejì àbí ìyàwó kẹta. Ẹ ká bàbá náà rí i pé nǹkan tó máa jẹ́ important sí wa ni pé kí ọmọ wa fẹ́ èèyàn jọ̀mọ́ tó dúró déédéé. Ìyàwó kìíní ló fẹ́ ṣe ní o, ìyàwó kejì ló fẹ́ ṣe, ìyàwó kẹta ló fẹ́ tó wáyé pé jọ̀mọ́ àmàdí àtò dúró déédéé ló fẹ́ fẹ́. Ẹ ká bá fọwọ́ sí, ká dẹ̀ fọ̀dọ̀ ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́. What I've said to round up is that we should ensure that our family is intact. We should ensure peace in our marriages and shun divorce and find a way of resolving our marital conflicts. Aside that, we should ensure that even if we want to marry another wife, we should not do it to spite the wife at home. And we should train our children to marry within the Jamaat. And we should put in strategy like IVC to achieve this that we are also saying verbally. We must make sure that we put in machinery to achieve this. And for those who are also fathers, they should support their children if they want to marry early, so that we curb promiscuity. Because as virginity is important in females, it's also important in males. We should train our children not to be sexually active before they get married legally. And to crown it all, as we are clamoring to marry a second, third, and fourth wife, if our female children also want to become second, third, fourth wife, once they want to marry
strong and committed Ahmadi. We should give them necessary support. If our male children also want to take second, third, and fourth wife, once they want to marry committed Ahmadi, we should also give them support. May Almighty Allah continue to help us and guide us. But Allah program mi taba ṣe, wọ́n máa fún one time tó ju báyìí lọ. Ọ̀rọ̀ pọ̀ tá a fi sọ̀bọ̀ kò sí àyè. Kọ́lọ̀ máa kó jọ kó ṣàdùn àkóbá ẹnì kankan tó lé wa. Asalaamu alaykum wa rahmatulahi wa barakatuh.
I'm quite sure you really enjoy the discussion, no doubt about that. And I hope that when you get back to your respective places, specifically your dealer, organize such a program so that you can discuss it at your convenience. I hope it will benefit us all. Number two is that the Maghrib prayer is going to be said around 7:20. We need to hasten so that I can perform ablution. 7:20. Yes, people should do it quickly. So I may be coming by 7:20 so that I can perform Salatul Maghrib and Isha. Maybe if the time permits tomorrow, we may attend to a few questions before you depart, your departure. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for all what it takes to discuss this matter. I know by the time you get back, you will be a different person in your respective places. Don't forget, the Ansarullah, you must marry more than one wife as you have come. Don't forget that when you get home, you will organize IVC in conjunction with your Amir is already coming. So let us make the closing prayer. And that honor will be given to acting missioner in charge. Closing prayer.
Allahumma